Hello, everybody. Glad you're here with me tonight. Obviously, not thrilled about the circumstances and also worried about what they could mean for the world, but we will talk about all of that in the broadcast tonight. So I'm going to put on the opening music just like I always do. And we're going to talk. The night is young. It's a little after 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in my lovely Brooklyn apartment in New York City. So let's do it.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
All right, everybody. The way we generally do these streams, I give my opening remarks. Then from there, we do a roll call, and then I answer questions for the remainder of the show. So if there is something that you would like me to talk about in the second half of the program, send me a super chat, send me a Rumble rant. That's the way it works. Couple announcements. First announcement is, every morning we have morning messages on the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel. This morning we had a great morning message from Dan Niswander, and we have a great message scheduled for tomorrow morning. So subscribe to the CPI YouTube channel to be up to date on our morning messages. That's one thing that we do here that is very, very appreciated. It's a way that we can give each other inspiration, hold each other up in these times, keep each other going, help our energy, feed other people's energy, be there for each other, support each other. And on top of that, we now have the option that if you are so inspired by the morning messages, and if you would like to share something inspirational or read from one of our books or tell a story or whatever, you can make your own morning message. And we now have that option as well, to make your own morning message. If you would like to submit a morning message as a way to make your voice heard and support other members of the community, we have that availability as well. You can submit a morning message. So that's the first announcement. Tune in every morning for morning messages on the CPI YouTube channel. Now, the next announcement is that we are having a workshop, and David Fox has got the registration. You can now register for the workshop. It's happening on October 12th in Chicago area. We can absolutely do that. It's going to be good. Peter Coffin will be there. I will be there. There's going to be music. There's going to be speeches. I know the Chicago folks are working very, very hard. We've had a number of people register already. Now, before, there was an issue with people registering because you had to have a Google account to register. We have now resolved that issue. So if you can just register, you don't need a Google account to register. So I would encourage you to go ahead and register if you can be there. It's going to be a great day. It will have 2 interactive sessions that won't be video recorded, so people can just ask questions and talk about the concepts. Good music, will be played, and Peter's going to give a great workshop about fandom, and I'm gonna lead some important discussions, and we're gonna have a talent show, and we're gonna get to know everybody. It'll be a social meetup. It's a meetup, right? A meetup, a workshop in the Chicagoland area. It won't be in Chicago. It'll be in a suburb. We're getting a nice Airbnb house, and we will do it all day. all day. We will go. And so come and drink some coffee and eat some donuts with us in the morning and prepare for an all-day workshop that you will enjoy. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope that you will be there. It's going to be very, very important. We urgently need to build an anti-imperialist movement in this country. And there's too much fooling around, and there's too much argument, and there's too much quibbling, and there's too much silliness. Now is the time to build a real anti-imperialist movement in this country. So come and be part of it, right? Come and be part of it. That's what we would urge you to do. Now, obviously, as I said before, the way we generally do these streams is first I give my opening remarks about, the topic of tonight. I think you all know what I'm talking about tonight. Then from there, we do a roll call. We find out who is on the other side of the camera. And then from there, we answer your super chat questions for the remainder of our show. Now, as you all see from the headlines, right? We are here. The subject of tonight's stream is that the leader of Hezbollah in Lebanon was murdered by Israel. This is not only a cowardly act by Israel. I mean, it's one thing for Israel to put explosives in a bunch of people's pagers and have them blow up and kill random people. And there's another thing for Israel to murder an Iranian diplomat in a diplomatic mission in Syria. It's another thing for Trump to murder Qasem Soleimani. But this cowardly act, murdering the prominent leader of another country and a member of an important political figure in Lebanon. It just shocks you. And it also, of course, Hezbollah is responding. Of course, missiles are raining down on Israel right now. Israel is determined to have an all-out regional war. They do not want peace. And there should be no bones about that. It's very, very clear. Very, very, very clear that Israel wants an all-out regional war. Now, who was Hassan Nasrallah? Hassan Nasrallah was the leader of a self-defense organization. Now, let's be very clear about this. Hassan Nasrallah was the leader of Hezbollah, and Hezbollah emerged when Israel invaded Lebanon in the late 70s and early 80s. There was Israeli invasion of Lebanon, and various armed self-defense groups emerged among the Lebanese people to fight the Israeli invaders. And they eventually merged into one organization called Hezbollah that went from being a militia, a self-defense militia, to being a political party. And it was very much inspired by the Islamic Revolution of Iran. And they did a lot of community development. They constructed, they built, and they continue to build and provide a lot of community support. And Nasrallah was their very, very charismatic leader who led this movement, this anti-imperialist mass movement in Lebanon. And if one is a conservative who believes in the right to bear arms, and if one believes that you have the right to protect your country from an invasion, you should love Hezbollah, because that's what Hezbollah is and was. It was a group of Lebanese people who defended their homeland from Israel's invasion, formed militia groups inspired by their religious faith and inspired by anti-colonialism and anti-imperialism. When Israel invaded Lebanon in 2006, they repelled Israel's invasion in a very heroic way that inspired people throughout the region. They have done a lot of community empowerment, provided a lot of services to people. And the reason they have so much support in Lebanon is because of the community work that they do, because of what they have provided for people. And they rebuilt after Israel's invasion. They rebuilt beautifully and constructed. And it was almost as if the invasion hadn't happened. They just rebuilt it so quickly. And that this is Hezbollah is an anti-imperialist organization of Shia Muslims. That is, I mean, they're half the government of Lebanon. They control half the parliament, and they control half the territory in the country. And they are anti-Israel, and they, engage in armed self-defense against Israel. They support the Palestinians, and Israel decided that they were going to just murder the leader of the organization. Now, I'm going to put on the screen here what has been said about this by important officials. So the UN General Assembly is happening right now, and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, he is at the United Nations, and he commented on the events. So I'm going to show you what he said.
Another glaring example of terrorist methods as a means of achieving political aims is the inhumane attack on Lebanon that transformed civilian technology into a lethal weapon. There must be an immediate investigation into this crime, but already we cannot remain silent in the face of the many publications in the media, including in Europe and here in the United States, that indicate to varying degrees the involvement and at the very least awareness of Washington when it comes to the preparation of that terrorist attack.
That's him referring to the terrorist attack in Lebanon, where they blew up the pagers. But this was also Lavrov commenting on the situation, on how basically the world has been pulled to the edge of war.
The fact that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains unresolved is destabilizing the entire region. The unprecedented brutality and devastation of the consequences in Gaza has triggered the sharp escalation in the Lebanon-Israel confrontation. The Middle East is at the brink of full-blown war, which it seems some keenly wish to see to transpire. On September 23rd alone, as a result of the large-scale Israeli bombardment of Lebanon, at least 558 people died, including 50 children. According to UNICEF, in one day in Lebanon, more people were killed than in the past 11 months. We strongly condemn actions of the Israeli side which blatantly violates the sovereignty of the country of Lebanon. We call for the immediate end to hostilities, which will end further bloodshed and create conditions for diplomatic and political resolution.
A lot has been said about the latest escalation of violence in the Middle East, or specifically in Gaza and Lebanon, throughout the days of the UN General.
Yeah, so, we have that now. There was a particularly tragic moment, where, a journalist who goes on Press TV and goes on RT, found out about the death of Nasrallah on the air. And this moment has kind of gone viral. So I'm going to show you that moment if you haven't seen it. This is a journalist who I really respect, who does a lot of really important work. Marwa Aswan, and this is the moment where on the air she learned about the death of this great anti-imperialist leader. And it's just, you can just see how devastated she is by what happened. And this is how people are feeling all throughout the region.
If President Putin was at the UNGA and he announces a target at the heart capital of Ukraine, all hell would have broken loose. Now, take back step or two and remember what Netanyahu did, him announcing it right there in New York, as the world is looking at a very grim future all across the world, as the United States is unsure what will happen with its own elections, as are the people in Europe who are suffering a lot from the risks and the danger that the United States of America pushed them to in the Russian Ukrainian conflict. So there is a grim future for everyone, but at the same time, you're seeing a genocidal person, a person who is a psychopath at so many levels. And I'm not saying this only because I'm Lebanese from South Lebanon and I have this animosity with the Zionist entity. I'm talking about Netanyahu himself. If you talk to psychiatrists or people who actually read body language, they can tell you that it's out of control.
Marwa, so sorry to interrupt. We do now have official confirmation from the Hezbollah group of the death of Hassan Nasrallah. What's your response, please? I'm so sorry. Let's end the interview there. We were talking to Marwa Osman, journalist and TV show host. Clearly, visibly shaken by the breaking news we're bringing you right now.
Yeah, I mean, she was absolutely devastated, as were people throughout the region. You know, I mean, and for Israel to just announce, you know, the way Netanyahu did. Now, there was a statement given by the Cuban government that they spoke before the UN General Assembly, the representative of Cuba. This is what he had to say on the topic in his remarks representing Cuba. So this was at the UN General Assembly.
El genocidio contra el pueblo palestino debe cesar sin condiciones y sin dilación. Israel, con la complicidad de Estados Unidos, ha puesto al mundo ante el peligro inminente de una conflagración de grandes proporciones. La irresponsable agresividad contra el Líbano, Siria, Irán y los pueblos del Medio Oriente tendrá consecuencias difíciles de estimar.
Yeah, and Cuba is obviously expressing outrage about it. You know, the supreme leader of Iran announced that for 5 days, Iran will be mourning the death of Nasrallah. They will have 5 days of mourning. And that he was killed planning the defense of the Palestinians. And he was planning defense of the Palestinians and planning, you know, and it's just like Israel is determined that there is an all-out war in the region. It's just, they just can't push this far enough, right? And all this restraint has been shown, and yet Israel continues to do this. And then at the same time, and I want to point this out, the liberals who are opposed to Israel, at least on some level, or at least opposing what Israel is doing, or at least mouthing criticism of Israel, the liberals, they insist you have to vote for Kamala Harris. And that you have to vote for Kamala Harris because Trump is so pro-Israel, and Kamala Harris at least pretends to care about the Palestinians. I want to show you, this was the statement that the White House put out about this brutal terrorist assassination by Israel of a self-defense leader, right? And this is who the liberals are saying that you should vote for. This is the statement. They didn't even have Joe Biden, who's the actual president, make the statement. They made the statement, you know, on behalf of, you know, it was the vice president's office that put it out there. The first line: Hassan Nasrallah was a terrorist with American blood on his hands. Across decades of his leadership, Hezbollah destabilized the Middle East. I mean, so they're supporting this illegitimate, murderous, and it refers to the Houthis as terrorists. It refers to, you know, I mean, this is absolutely, this is their response, right? Israel is taking the world. I mean, it looks like we're going to have a war at this point. I mean, missiles are falling on Tel Aviv as we speak. I mean, it looks like there's a war happening at this point. And you know, this war is happening. And it appears that their only response is to call a leader of this Lebanese self-defense organization a terrorist. I mean, and this is who you're supposed to vote for. I mean, how is this statement in any way better than Trump? How? What in this statement is in any way better than what Trump would say? Right? I mean, this statement here that justifies Israeli crimes, you know, is absolutely criminal. And, you know, I mean, Nasrallah was the leader of Hezbollah, and he was the well-respected leader of the resistance to Israel. And yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of different clips going around of Nasrallah, the various statements he made over the years. This is one clip that's been going around that's worth pointing out.
موجود بالعالم العربي بموضوع علاقات إسرائيل وأمريكا، وبنرجع بنعيد وبنرجع بنكرر. وهاي اسمح لي لك أكذوبة اللوبي الصهيوني، أنه اليهود هن حاكمين أمريكا وهن بياخدوا القرار وهن عاملين وهن مساويين ومشاكل. لا، أمريكا هي صاحبة القرار. بأمريكا في شركات كبرى، في مثلث ثالوث: شركات النفط، شركات السلاح، وما يسمى بالصهيونية المسيحية، هو أصحاب القرار، هذا التحالف. إسرائيل كانت في الماضي أداة بريطانية، والآن هي أداة أمريكية.
Yeah. Now that's a pretty powerful statement that he made there. He basically described Israel as, as a tool of imperialism, a tool of the big oil companies, of the military industrial complex. And that's pretty powerful, right? And that's, Nasrallah, he built an organization that was a builder organization and a self-defense organization. And it's absolutely horrendous. What has been done here. And it's cowardly, just like it's cowardly to blow up a bunch of people's cell phones. This is pretty awful. And of course, there's going to be military retaliation. You're going to have an all-out regional war at this point. And that's what Israel apparently wants, right? They want an all-out regional war. And that seems to be what they're going to get. They aren't satisfied just killing the Palestinians for almost a year now. That's not enough, right? Now they want to invade Lebanon. They want to wage war against the Houthis in Yemen. They want to go out and fight Iran. They want to fight against Syria. This is a situation where, even if you are somebody who believes in supporting Israel, which I know there are people that feel that Israel must exist or whatever. I don't agree with them. But even then, you have to look at this and you say Israel is conducting itself in a way that is almost designed to inflame the rest of the world. Let's just for a moment, put on the screen. This is Netanyahu when he spoke at the UN General Assembly. People walked out of the room. I don't know if you saw, but when he got up to speak, almost all the countries in the world walked out when he spoke. Right? There was it was an empty room that he spoke to, pretty much, because everyone disapproves of what they are doing. The murderous killing of the Palestinians. This is when Netanyahu got up to speak. This is the General Assembly of the UN includes every member state, every country in the world, and they all just walked out. The whole world is horrified by what Israel is doing. It's utterly horrifying what Israel is doing. And people walked out. Right? He gets up to speak, and the world just kind of walked out on him. I'll show you that as well. Yeah, there's all the countries walking out. I can show you. I think there was booing during his speech, which is not very common at the UN. So yeah, here's more footage of the walkout. Right, I'll show you the people walking out on Netanyahu. Here we go. All right. Put that on the screen.
I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
There they are. They're all just walking out.
Order, please.
The whole room's walking out. All the Muslim
Ladies
countries,
and gentlemen,
African
order.
countries.
Order, please.
Look at all the empty chairs. Yeah, I mean, the world is against Israel at this point. It's very, very clear. And Israel's cowardly act, their war by assassination, they're blowing up pagers and blowing up cell phones. They're, cowardly murdering of the leaders of other countries. Now they're invading Lebanon. I mean, this is an absolutely cowardly criminal government in Israel that is making no pretense of wanting civilization, of caring about human lives, murdering the Palestinians. I mean, it's absolutely shocking to the world what Israel is doing. That they conduct their wars by means of assassination, by means of cowardly assassination. They conduct their wars by means of murdering civilians, not the slightest pretext of being humanitarian, not the slightest pretext of being moral. And, I mean, there's a number of things I can say, I have lived in New York City for a long time. And, when I first came to the city, I did a lot of literature table stuff. I would be in Union Square with a literature table. I would be in Times Square or around the city with a literature table. And these Zionists, they live in an alternate reality. Many times they would walk up to the table and they'd be like, have you ever heard of the Treaty of blah, 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 from the year of 14 blah, 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 or 16 blah, 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 blah? I'd be like, no. They'd be like, aha, well, according to blah, 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 of the Treaty of blah, 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 Israel, blah, 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 blah. And I would just be like, well, I don't care about that treaty. I've never heard of it, but it doesn't mean that what Israel is doing to the Palestinians is right. I think I can look at what the Palestinians are suffering from, and I can say that it's wrong. And they'd be like, yeah, but what about the treaty of blah, 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 in the year of blah, 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 16 blah, 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 or 14 blah, 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 blah. And I'd just be like, I don't care about some treaty, some law. I see what you're doing to the Palestinians, and it's wrong. And they would be like, but look how smart I am. I know all about the treaty of blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, I don't care about your treaty. I see that what's being done to the Palestinians is wrong. And I don't understand why that is so hard for them to understand. They think they're so smart. They can memorize some treaty. I know all about this treaty. I don't give a fuck about your treaty, right? I don't give a fuck about your, and they always have these like long drawn out things. And then they are stupidly Islamophobic, right? They say things, I've actually read the Quran. It always starts in, it's like, oh boy, here we go. I've read the Quran. And they insist that every Muslim believes certain things, and you say, no, they don't. And they say, yeah, they do, because it's in the Quran. And if they say they don't believe it, they're practicing taqiyya. They're lying to you. And it's like, really, geez, the Bible says that women are not allowed to speak in a church. The Bible says that you shouldn't eat shellfish. And I guess all the Christians that say that eat shellfish and all the women who speak in churches are practicing taqiyya. They're just pretending they don't believe it. I mean, they live in this alternate reality where and you would talk to these Zionists and, it was like, you would say things to them like, do the words freedom of religion mean anything to you? It's like, they want to outlaw mosques. That's a really big thing among these Zionists. They want to outlaw mosques. Why? Well, because they're terrorists or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but freedom of religion, right? What if I tried to outlaw your synagogue? Would you be okay with that? What if I tried to outlaw a Buddhist temple? Would you be okay with that? But it's Muslims. They're just so evil. These people are, and again, and that's how they can do these cowardly things. They can blow up pagers and kill a bunch of people. Well, they're Muslims. They're not people. They don't have rights. I mean, it's just, these Zionists are vile folks, and whatever they do is always justified. They are the only real victims. Everyone is out to get them. Christianity is a vast conspiracy to kill the Jews. One of my Zionist coworkers told me that every religion except for Judaism was just something invented to justify killing Jews. Every single one, right? Every other religion was just invented. I mean, that's what they believe. It is them against the world. And what bothers me, I mean, it's when you meet them, they are amazingly disgusting, right? And you can see that. And when they say things like all religions except for Judaism are just an excuse to kill the Jews, when they say things like mosques should be outlawed, and when they say things like that, it's really obvious. What is annoying and what is the problem is that there is a lot of people who have who should be rightly horrified by their rhetoric and by the way they conduct themselves, who support them. Who kind of look past what Zionism really is. And they support them on the basis of like, 9/11 was really, really bad, and those are Muslim terrorists, or they support them on the basis of, well, Israel's an important country, or the Holocaust happened, and or there's got to be two sides to every story. And all. It's like, no, just look at who you're dealing with here. Just come to New York City. I'll take you. We can go to Crown Heights. We can go to Williamsburg, and I can talk to these people. These people don't deserve your support. These people are hateful bigots. These people are genocidal, murderous bigots. And that's what they are. I mean, they're not worthy of your support. They're not people who there's not two sides to every story. There's not, this is really sad. No, these are hateful bigots. And it's that simple. It really is that simple. And I guess what bothers me is the number of people who they want to both sides this. They want to, and it's just like, no, I mean, these are hateful bigots. These are not good folks. And there's even, I get mad about even among communists, among leftists, there's a double standard. Right. Many times, with Zionists, it was, that's so sad. Right. But with, if an American who's not Jewish opposes gay marriage or opposes abortion or is against affirmative action, they're just an evil racist, according to the Workers' World Party. However, if someone's a Zionist and says kill all the Arabs, well, that's just so sad. That's a tragedy. It's just, and it's like there's this double standard where, if you are a Zionist, you're allowed to be a hateful bigot, according to a lot of people, right? You get a pass on being a hateful bigot if you're a Zionist. You can want to exterminate whole other ethnic groups and races and religions. And that's totally fine because you're a Zionist, right? And I see this over and over and over again. And I mean, you got to point out what it is. Here's another example, right? This is something that happened. There was some kind of terrorist attack that happened. There was some kind of anti-Semitic incident. And there was, this happened. I believe it was in New Jersey. There was some kind of incident. There was some graffiti or there was some kind of hate crime that was committed. After it happened, all these Orthodox Jews, this is what they did. Let me put the image on the screen. Let me see if I can put it on the normal way. If not, I may have to make it a PDF, but I'll try to put this image on the screen because I want you to see this image. This was in New Jersey. I remember when this happened. It was all over the news. Here we go. It was in New Jersey. Let's see. Did it put it on the screen? Okay. Now I got to make it a PDF. I don't know why StreamYard is acting up, but we'll make it a PDF. This was in New Jersey. All right. And this happened. And this happened, and it was on the news, and people thought it was very cool. People thought it was just, oh, it's a great thing that this happened. This was in New Jersey. Goodness gracious. Now the image is sideways, and but here we go. I'll put the image on the screen. I have to bend it first. Now it's sideways, so I have to adjust the image so you can see what you can see. Here we go. All right. Now we'll put it on the screen. This happened in New Jersey a few years back. This is a synagogue in New Jersey, right? That there was some anti-Semitic incident in New Jersey. And so, they felt a need to protect themselves or whatnot. Goodness gracious. I don't know why it's... Here we go. Right? And, it's in New Jersey. All these Orthodox Jews are carrying automatic weapons. AR-15s, guns. Nobody cares. Nobody. Everyone's fine with that. Right? Everyone's fine with that. Could you imagine if this had happened at a mosque? Could you imagine what they would do to a mosque that was waving guns around in their holy site, right? I mean, this is New Jersey. I mean, there's many pictures of what they did, right? I mean, if any Muslim group did anything close to this, right, they would be in Guantanamo Bay being tortured. You can't do this, if you are of the Muslim faith, but this is totally allowed. Totally allowed. Right? See if I can find another image for you. Yeah, they're just waving guns around, right? That's totally fine, right? But they're the victims, right? They get to do this. But if a Muslim group does this, they're terrorists, they're murderers, but they're the victims, right? Got to remember, they're the victims. They're the eternal victims, right? I mean, this was outside of a synagogue in New Jersey. Right? And these are the same people that are trying to take away your right to own a gun in your home, right? That think we need gun control too, right? And keep in mind, these are Democrats, overwhelmingly Democrat voters. These are people that want to take your gun away from you. And they're, carrying guns everywhere, and that's totally fine. But can you imagine if a group of people with a different holy book and the same type of beard were carrying guns at their holy site? The response would be unbelievable. And again, these are the very people that are trying to take away your gun. They're trying to say you don't have a right to have a gun in your house to protect yourself because you might be a school shooter. You are an inferior Gentile. They're trying to take away your gun. They would definitely never allow any Muslims to have a gun, but this is what they're openly doing in their New Jersey holy sites. I mean, and how can we call this anything but what it is? I mean, this is ethnic supremacism. I mean, these are ethnic supremacists, and the rules for them and nobody else, right? I think this is another image, that we've got. I mean, here, this is, I think they were shopping for different guns, and again, I am at the point where, there is such a sensitivity around this stuff among leftists. We're not allowed to talk about this, right? Look at that, right? But that's totally fine, right? Imagine if a Muslim group was doing what they're doing, but it's just totally fine for them to stand outside their synagogues with AK-47s. Totally fine for them to wave automatic weapons around in their holy sites. It's totally fine for them to call for exterminating rival religious groups. Oh, that's just totally fine. That's just totally fine, right? all of this is just totally acceptable. Just like it's totally acceptable for them to murder the head of another country, right? Or the head of the most important political party in Lebanon. It's totally fine for them to make a whole bunch of people's pagers and phones blow up and injure people in a cowardly deed like what they did recently. I mean, it's totally fine for them to bombard and, just bombard Gaza for a year straight. The rules don't apply to them. They are under no obligation to treat other people with respect, right? And that's Zionism, right? And that's what it is. There are some very heroic Jews that are anti-Israel Jews that talk about how it doesn't represent the Jewish people, and how in the Torah it makes clear that only the Messiah can create Israel, that Israel is an offense. Rabbi Weiss, I've interviewed him many times, and I'll put him on here, right? And you'll see Rabbi Weiss. I've interviewed him many times, and he talks about, as a Jew, why he doesn't believe that this is in compliance and in line with his faith. And there are these Orthodox Jews that do stand against what Israel and against what Israel does. And they are a very, very vocal minority, a very, very small minority among Jews, but they do know their stuff, and they know their religious teachings, and they maintain that according to the Torah and according to the religious tradition of Judaism, Israel goes against it. Israel is a violation of what they believe the Jewish law really means. I'm going to show you Rabbi Weiss and what he has to say. Because if there's anybody who has the right to say that what Israel is doing is not consistent with Judaism, it would be Rabbi Weiss, right? That guy, of anybody, he has the authority. This is a very, very observant Jew, who has kind of spent his life going around saying that Israel goes against the faith that he stands for. So we'll put Rabbi Weiss on. Okay.
With Jews, it's being done in our name. We have to stand up and yell. It's not anti-Semitism to be against Zionism. On the contrary, we are attacked. Even when I went out in New York, my car tires were slashed, the windows, the mirrors broken, and so forth. But we don't care. We're going out anyway. Wherever there is a large Jewish community, wherever there's a very religious Jewish community, even if it's not large, they will be in opposition to the existence of the Zionist state of Israel, because it is antithetical to Judaism. Zionism is a movement that started around 150 years ago. That's just really recently, relatively recently. And it's a movement of people who were totally estranged from the Jewish religion. They were nationalists. They weren't practicing the religion as a whole. And they wanted just a convenient community, a land, a nation that they should feel comfortable and proud of themselves. The Jews never attempted, even though we went through hardships, the Inquisition, the Crusades, and we suffered a lot, but we never attempted to reestablish a Jewish sovereignty, a Jewish nationhood, a Jewish kingdom, because we know it's verboten, it's forbidden, it's just not acceptable according to Judaism to have our own state. Remember, the religion is 3,000 years ago, but 2,000 years ago, we were sent into exile by God. We have to be loyal citizens in every country we reside. And we're not to attempt to leave exile because it's a godly declared exile. Jews lived with a distinctly different religion than the Muslims, but it was never a problem. In fact, it's more than that. The Muslims took in the Jews by the Inquisition, where they tried to torture Jews to convert to Christianity. It was the Muslim countries that embraced the Jews and took them in, and the Jews were able to flourish. They realized in order to get a lot of massive support from the world, evangelistic Christians, Jews who don't know the Torah, don't know their laws, who don't practice the laws. So they knew they'll go to Palestine and they'll be able to tell everybody, oh, this is the God-given land to the Jewish people. They automatically started breaching and transgressing the laws of the Torah, not to kill and not to steal, not to oppress a people, because they wanted to make their national home in a land that was inhabited by the Palestinian people. Now, right at the beginning, when they said, oh, it's an empty land. And if anybody stood up against them, they said, because you hate the Jews and you're an anti-Semite. They treat us like the worst terrorists in the world. When a boy or girl turns 17, they become a criminal, even if they're not demonstrating, because we refuse to serve in the IDF. They yell at me as a Holocaust denier when my grandparents were killed in Auschwitz. My father escaped Hungary when the Nazis came in. My father was in Auschwitz. Almost the entire families were wiped out. I live and breathe Holocaust. How dare they claim that we're Holocaust deniers? But that's just part of that, the vile Zionism, that they have the power of the most expensive PR and the power of AIPAC that influences, put pressure on politicians to be silent. That is what they're afraid of. The people who stand up and reveal the truth, that Judaism is a beautiful, and we live together with Muslims, and we are thankful to Muslims, and we don't want what's happening to the Palestinians. We cry with the Palestinian suffering. That is what they're afraid of. The world will wake up.
Yeah. No, one time I was in Washington, D.C., and I was just walking by them, the anti-Israel Jews. They were outside the White House, and so I filmed them.
Outside the White House while the Palestinian President Abbas is meeting with President Trump. They are meeting on the issue of Palestine, which is a critical, important issue, and we hope and we pray that this be successful with the utmost success. We are making a statement here today that as Jewish people we are standing here welcoming Palestinian President Abbas, because we want to clarify that Jews are not in conflict with Palestine. We were never in conflict in Palestine. We lived in Palestine, our people lived in Palestine in peace, and we can live in peace, we should live in peace, and hopefully we will live in peace. But we have to understand that nothing the State of Israel presents, nothing of those actions, none of those people represent our people, the Jewish people, or the Jewish religion. Yes, you have some people of Jewish descent unfortunately claiming to represent me and my people, unfortunately misusing my religion. Non-religious people, anti-religious people, misusing my religion.
Yeah. I mean, I do confess, folks, I am shocked by the death of Nasrallah. I am horrified by it. And I'm also terrified of what it will mean for the world. I don't know how we cannot have World War III at this point. I mean, we're going to have to not have World War III so that the human race can continue. But I'm wondering how we cannot have World War III. I am perplexed. If I was a world leader, I would see this as a very, very big puzzle, because I don't know how we cannot have World War III. I mean, it's like, what more can Israel do at this point? I mean, they want World War III. They want nukes to go off. They want death. I mean, I am horrified by this entire situation, and I'm perplexed. I don't know how this ends, without World War III, and I don't know quite what to say. So, I'm going to show you a lot of different video that I've done over the years related to this topic. I hope that you're inspired by it. I'm going to show, various statements that I've made. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is, I've done a lot of work around this issue over the years, solidarity with Iran. I've done work, on these issues. So I don't know, this was one of my best moments. This was when I went to the US State Department and I confronted them about Israel's nuclear weapons program. Because WikiLeaks revealed that Israel indeed does have nuclear weapons. And this was one of my best moments. Here we go.
So an email has recently come to light, an exchange between Jeffrey Leeds and former Secretary of State Colin Powell, in which he acknowledges that Israel has, quote, he says 200 nuclear weapons. And the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty has not been signed by Israel. Under U.S. law, the United States should cut off support to Israel because it's a nuclear power that has not signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, according to Colin Powell, correct?
Shouldn't you ask Colin Powell that? I'm not going to speak to this particular traffic, and I'm certainly not going to discuss.
Israel doesn't have nuclear weapons?
I'm certainly not going to discuss matters of intelligence from the podium. I'm not. I have no comment on that.
Okay. Well, the email says the boys in Tehran know Israel has 200, all we targeted on Tehran, and we have thousands. I mean, that seems to indicate that there's a knowledge of an Israeli nuclear program, which would make U.S. aid to Israel illegal.
I think I've answered your question.
Okay. Well, let me ask. Is that, do I have the correct understanding of U.S. law that we're not allowed to support a nuclear power that has not signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty?
Look, we obviously support the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. I'm not a legal expert on all the tenets of it, and I'm certainly not going to speak about the details that you've revealed here in this email traffic. That would be inappropriate for me to discuss one way or the other. I'm not going to do it.
There are sanctions imposed on North Korea in response to their nuclear proliferation. There were sanctions put on Iran in response to allegations of nuclear proliferation. And now we have this email from Colin Powell saying that Israel has 200 nuclear weapons. Why is Israel not facing any consequence for this?
That's a very colorful way of getting back to the same question you just asked me. But I'm going to refer you back to the transcript when you see it this afternoon to what I said before to your question. Saeed?
You're familiar with this email, right?
I'm not.
Oh.
I have not seen it. I can't speak to the email, and frankly, even if I'd seen it, sir, I wouldn't engage in that kind of a discussion from the podium.
Yeah. Israel has nuclear weapons. Israel has not signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And that's all good as far as the United States is concerned. And the USA just pretends it doesn't know Israel has nuclear weapons when it clearly does. I mean, this is the world that we live in, where Israel is just allowed to do whatever it wants, kill people, torture people, murder people, have people's pagers blow up, and Israel's marching us into World War III. And, you know, I see people have asked good questions about this, and I intend to give some good answers to those questions. But, you know, I'm just going to show you all some different, you know, different things I've given. You know, I've gone to Iran to speak at anti-Israel conferences. I'm going to show you the speech I gave in Iran about the struggle against racism in the United States. I'll probably show you that in a little bit, but I want to show you a presentation that I gave. I'm just trying to find the clip here. I did speak a few years ago at an anti-Israel protest, you know, and they asked me, I was there just kind of, you know, I was there covering it and reporting on it for Press TV News. It was near the UN headquarters where I worked. And they actually asked me, Caleb, can you get on the microphone? And I had a copy of that day's Wall Street Journal. And so, you know, I gave a quick speech, I gave a quick speech, and it was across from the Israeli embassy. So I'm going to try and find that talk if I can put it on for you. All right. Let me see if I can just remember what I called it. Yeah. I called the speech $18 million per day, because that's how much money the American taxpayers give to Israel. And they just kind of grabbed me and they said, hey, Caleb, can you make some remarks? And so I did. And we give $18 million per day to Israel. And so I decided to speak on that issue. And again, this is how we should be framing these things.
All right. You know, every single day $18 million of our tax money goes to fund the criminals in that building over there and in occupied Palestine, the Israeli regime. Every single day, $18 million. And I have a copy of today's issue of the Wall Street Journal, and it says here that 1 in 4 bridges in the United States are not secure. It says here that urban highway congestion costs over $100 billion annually. The United States is crumbling. People are unemployed. They are closing hospitals and they are closing schools, but yet they have more and more money for the murderers in Tel Aviv. That's unacceptable. As the U.S. becomes more and more of a police state, and the civil liberties the U.S. government is always bragging about get stripped and stripped away, you can't help but admit that the U.S. is starting to look more and more like Israel. The cops who choked Eric Garner to death, the New York City Police Department is trained in Israel. The same corporation that manufactured the rubber bullets that were fired against protesters in Ferguson, Missouri, manufactures the bullets that were fired on protesters in Palestine. The struggle against Zionism, the struggle against the Israeli criminals is not just a struggle in one part of the world, it's a global struggle. It's a struggle against the bankers in London and the bankers on Wall Street who are destroying the world, and it's a struggle against global capitalism. Thank you very much. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Yeah, so they just grabbed me, and I happened to have the Wall Street Journal with me, and I made my remarks on that. And that is the way, let me add, that we should be framing up this issue. We should be framing it up as, why are we getting ourselves involved in this? What is in it for America? How do we benefit from this? Right? And if you explain it that way, and you don't try to argue with people about the Old Testament or the New Testament, and you don't try to argue with people about what Islam is, and you don't try to argue with people about terrorists, and you just say, look, if we just stayed out of this and we focused on making America a better country, things would be better, right? And that's the way we've got to frame it up. And that's the way we should be putting it in arguments with other people in the United States. And if we stick to that, and we make it about, look, America first. America first. What about people right here, right? Shouldn't we be focused on building and constructing in our own country rather than helping Israel murder people in some other country? I mean, it seems like common sense when all of our services are closing down, when they're unpaving the roads across America. 27 different states have, municipalities that are unpaving the roads. Shouldn't we be spending billions of dollars here to revamp America rather than spending billions of dollars to help Israel do cowardly things like this horrendous murder that just happened? I mean, I'm at a loss for words. I'm in shock about today's events, about what happened, about the death of Nasrallah. And, I'm at a loss for words. And so I don't know how much my remarks tonight, I've got some other things I do want to say to you all. Before I answer people's questions, we got 6 super chats that have come in. We've got 1 Rumble rant that has come in, and I will do my best to give a good answer to those. But, I don't know what I can say really that hasn't been said. Again, I am at a loss because I'm so horrified by this whole situation. I'm at a loss for words, but I want to be here with you all, and I want us to come together as a community. And I want us to get a clear perspective on this and how $18 million per day, $18 million every single day, $18 million. Put your mind around that. $18 million every single day. This is how we need to talk about it with our friends and neighbors. $18 million every single day so that they can create chaos and instability and march us toward World War III. I mean, what is in it for us? How are the people in your neighborhood and your community in any way benefiting from this? You're not, right? You're not benefiting at all. This is this is, I mean, so they can screw us, so they can make the rest of the world hate us, so they can, I mean, this is pretty horrible, pretty horrible. So, this is kind of where we're at. But I mean, that's kind of where we're at. I do want to say this, right? I was talking to somebody today, and I if anyone is in here and you didn't finish college, if anyone is in here and you're embarrassed about the fact that, you know, you didn't go to a good Ivy League school, or you feel like you didn't do well or whatever, you shouldn't be. I just want to get this out of my system. You shouldn't be. Because the Vice President of the United States, who could be our next president, I really hope she doesn't. I really hope she loses. But the Vice President of the United States has gone to all the best schools, all the best law schools, got all the best grades, was a very high achieving person. And this is who she is. Right? I mean, I will put on, this is what smart is supposed to mean. According to America, this is what smart is. And that should tell you that if this system says that you are not smart, that's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. And I mean, you all saw this last week. I made this edit. I reacted to the video on air, and then I did this edit. But yeah, this is what smart is. This is a straight A student. This is a high achieving person, according to American education.
Us on Zoom from Pennsylvania.
Hi, Oprah. Hi, Madam Vice President. It's nice to be with you all.
Yes.
Hi.
And so, what did you want to say to the Vice President?
So, Madam Vice President, we are, like many, many young Americans, just experiencing a very high cost of living. We ended up giving up our apartment, moving in with our parents, who were so gracious to take us in for over a year so that we could save money and ultimately buy a home, because that's what we thought the American dream was, to get married and buy a home and have a baby. And now here we are, and our mortgage is incredibly higher than what we thought it would be. And we really would love to know what your plan is to help lower the cost of living.
Yeah, first of all, thank you both for being here. And yours is a story I hear around the country as I travel. And in terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and dreams and ambitions for your family, and working hard and finding that the American dream is, for this generation and so many recently, far more elusive than it's been. And we need to deal with that. And there are a number of ways. One is bringing down the cost of everyday necessities, including groceries.
That was her answer. Right? I mean, this is a straight A student in America. This is who your teacher wanted you to be. When your teacher punished you for doing your own research and reading, when your teacher, you know, scolded you for asking too many questions and thinking too much about your topic, when your teacher said that you weren't as smart as the other kids and all of that, this is who your teacher wanted you to be in America.
What is on your heart to say to the American people as we have 47 days until November 5th?
We love our country. I love our country. I know we all do. That's why everybody's here right now. We love our country. We take pride in the privilege of being American. And this is a moment where we can and must come together as Americans, understanding we have so much more in common than what separates us. Let's come together with the character that we are so proud of about who we are, which is we are an optimistic people. We are an optimistic people. Americans, by character, are people who have dreams and ambitions and aspirations. We believe in what is possible. We believe in what can be. And we believe in fighting for that. That's how we came into being. Because the people before us understood that one of the greatest expressions for the love of our country, one of the greatest expressions of patriotism, is to fight for the ideals of who we are, which includes freedom to make decisions about your own body, freedom to be safe from gun violence, freedom to have access to the ballot box, freedom to be who you are and just be, to love who you love openly and with pride, freedom to just be. And that's who we are. We believe in all that. And so this is a moment where we stand knowing what we are fighting for. We're not fighting against. It's what we're fighting for.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam
Yeah. I mean, this is the pinnacle of what it means to be a brilliant, brilliant thinker in the United States. That's what smart is in America. That's what your teacher wanted you to be. That's what, the college admissions were looking for at the Ivy League schools, at Harvard and Yale. They're trying to find the ideal candidate. They want you to be that, right? Oprah was sitting there looking across from what is the ultimate expression. I mean, this is the ultimate expression of what the American educational system wants, right? This is what smart is supposed to be. So if the American educational system has told you that you are not smart, I would take that as a compliment, right? I mean, this is what our culture has become. This is what we produce, right? We produce that. That is intelligence in America. And she put out her statement today explaining what she thinks of the murder of Nasrallah, right? And he was a terrorist. He was a terrorist. She knows a lot about it, I'm sure. So I really would urge people to think about how, like, the problem here is it's not just Kamala Harris and it's not just Israel. It's a much bigger problem, is that we have capitalism and imperialism in decay. And I guess, we're all kind of horrified by what happened today. And we're also all kind of horrified about what might happen as a result. I honestly don't know what's going to happen as a result. I know what I'm planning to do, and I know, how I can try to nudge the world in a pro-peace direction. So I know that much. And I also, I know there's going to be a vice presidential debate, between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz on Tuesday. I know we're launching an important anti-imperialist project that we're doing with CPI. You'll see more about it, but I'm launching that on Wednesday, working out the details. And I mean, we're just doing the best we can. And these are very hard times. It's a hard time to be somebody who wants the world to change. It's a hard time to believe in right and wrong. I mean, when our world is going the way it's going, right? It's hard. And I'm not pretending it's easy. So, I'm going to show a couple more clips of different things. Hey, I wrote a book about Yemen, right? I participated in a humanitarian mission to Yemen a couple years back. And, I wrote this book, Who Are the Houthis and What Are They Fighting For? It. The full audio book of it is now online. So, check that out if you want to learn about another Shia Islamic organization. It's not about Hezbollah. It's about Nasrallah, the Houthis, but they're a similar organization of anti-imperialist Shia Muslims. Yeah, I'm going to put on, the speech, that I gave in Iran. I might put on a couple other videos, here's what I'll do, right? So this is a speech that was given, we had a conference in Texas a few years ago. I think it was about 2 years ago. We had a conference in Texas, in Austin, Texas, and a young Shia Muslim young man, a teenager, came and he asked if he could speak. And he gave this speech, or this young Shia Muslim man from Austin, Texas, and he got up in front of this group and he gave this speech, and we were all deeply moved by it. So I'm going to put that on, actually. This is the young Muslim man who came to a CPI conference, Mohammed Mirza, and this is what he said 2 years ago at our conference. So there we go. All right. Certain people that were there at the conference didn't feel like they needed to stay and watch all the other speakers. So only the people who actually cared were there, right? And certain people who came to have a photo op and then left didn't see this, and they should have seen it because it was a very beautiful speech.
Everyone for being here. I feel a little naked. I left my hat in the back, so forgive me for that. I would like to welcome up a young man that I met recently after confronting AOC, who invited me on his YouTube show to do an interview. Mohammed Mirza, a young political journalist and analyst who I have faith that he will become one of the next big names in journalism, and I feel confident. I want all of you to give a warm welcome to a young and aspiring political journalist.
In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to address this gathering. Today, we gather here in solidarity with the victims of war and imperialism, with the victims of greed and racism. Today, we have gathered for those individuals who have hopefully decided to leave their personal interests in serving the people of this world, in providing true and accurate information, and by leaving their biases and by taking one of the most important tasks and duties and responsibilities in supporting a movement which has been criticized by those who benefit from murdering other people, which has been criticized by those who benefit from murdering other people. By standing against wars and bloodshed, we here have proved that we're not going to buy on to the war narrative or the agenda of those corporations or lobbies that benefit from weapon sales, human bloodshed, and human suffering. We are here to denounce war and bloodshed and to sympathize with war victims, the countless refugees who are running away from mercenaries and brutalities of wars, looking for shelter. If they manage to escape from the bombshells and the gunshots in their war-torn countries, they end up losing their children to the harsh ocean waves. The war is illegally imposed by those imperialist, capitalist powers. They are those rich politicians and CEOs who fund and promote wars for their own interests, to fill their own filthy stomachs, while children are starving to death in Yemen, Palestine, Afghanistan, and Iraq. How many times we, the American people, are going to get fooled into illegal wars, the false flag of WMDs that led to the Iraq War. The false flag of WMDs that led to the Iraq War. We're talking about 20 years of misery for the locals of Iraq and Afghanistan, spending $8 trillion of US taxpayer dollars and killing 926,000 civilians, and not to forget thousands of years of human civilization in Iraq. And let's not forget those victims who died, the thousands of victims who died on 9/11 to create a pretext for this war. It is extremely important that we distinguish falsehood from the truth, propaganda from reality, as they have tried time and again to somehow hide the facts from the people by silencing the media that speaks out against them. In the conflict of Ukraine, revealed the double standards and the hypocritical politicians, as when Arabs, Africans, or Muslims are being driven out by their invasions, they're considered terrorists, and when they take up arms to defend themselves, from foreign powers, they're blacklisted. And when they're raised their voices, they're silenced. But when white European with blue eyes and blonde hair do all those, they're considered civilized and receive all of Western media's attention. They're also humans. Why are we, whether they're white or black, but why is there selective sympathization? It's a racist mainstream media coverage which has led to the xenophobia or the preference of one race over the other that we can see in the rise of the attacks on Asian communities here, or we can see the rise of Islamophobia. Why are Muslims considered terrorists? Why are Muslims considered terrorists? Why is terrorism only being used to describe Muslims, not for Nazis, not for supremacists, causing bloodshed around the globe? I would never recommend learning from your Islam from Western mainstream media. Rather refer to the Holy Quran. According to the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, killing one innocent human is as if you have killed the whole humanity. And saving one innocent human is as if you have saved the whole humanity. Our religion teaches us to defend ourselves, not to fight wars. It's a peaceful religion. After this, those neoliberal mouthpieces still have the audacity to come out and promote human rights and champion freedom in the West, who pretend to champion human rights for their own interests and to compromising the truth, to fund for example, for funding the Israeli Iron Dome. What kind of freedom is this when people like Julian Assange are being persecuted for revealing war crimes? I only see freedom. Free Assange! Free Assange! I only see freedom for those who are making warmongering policies while sitting in the comfort in the White House, while journalists who reveal the truth are being persecuted. As Malcolm X once said, this is irresponsible media. It will make the criminal look like a victim, and a victim look like a criminal. If you aren't careful, the media will have you hating the people being oppressed and loving the people who are doing oppression. This is a sort of propaganda and a tactic that I would call psychological warfare. This battle of truth and falsehood, in this battle of truth and falsehood, let's continue our struggle. We believe that the truth will be victorious. Our small voices can be a thorn in the eyes of the oppressors. When the tyrant at the time wanted to burn Prophet Abraham, remember, when the tyrant at the time wanted to burn Prophet Abraham, a small bird would come and drop a small amount of water. No matter how small the efforts is, we will still continue. In history, we have seen great examples of leaders. One of the greatest leaders that we have seen was Hussein, son of Ali. Hussein, the grandson of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Hussein, 1400 years ago, was under a caliphate of a tyrannical dictator and a mercenary Yazid who treated his opponents like scum. Hussein fearlessly stood up against Yazid with only a handful of companions against thousands and said, Hayhat min nadillah, I'll never accept humiliation. I'll never accept humiliation. His loyal companions, all of them were gone. The men from his family were dead, including a 6-month-old child. The women were beaten and paraded through cities, but despite this supposed defeat, Hussein never gave up. Hussein never stood down. And he remained a role model for generations to come, as greats such as Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Imam Khomeini, and Qasim Soleimani, who were all inspired by this one Hussein. And despite all his limitations, he was able to make such a big impact on the globe. His stance is alive today with all those who seek freedom. The stance that I'll never bow down to an oppressor and will always stand tall and never compromise my values. This inspiration is why the resistance is alive today. And this movement is stronger than ever. And the enemy is weaker than ever. Remember, Israel is weaker than the web of a spider. And today, the people of the world... Today, the people of the world are waking up to the call, to the lies and the deceptions, and seeing the reality of these hollow words of politicians. and those who claim to be supporting the people of Yemen, Palestine, and Syria, but then send money to terrorists. Let's open our eyes to the crimes of these bloodthirsty imperialist regimes and to the lies that have been speaking to justify these crimes. If Prophet Jesus was alive today, he would not be silent, he would not be passive or indifferent to injustice. He would do anything to stop the brutalities on Palestinians, as well as human suffering in Yemen, and the racism against African Americans, all the illegal and brutal wars and harsh economic sanctions that this country has imposed on other nations. I would like to see a world where peace and justice is the order of the day. And if we want to see peace in this country, if we want to solve the problem of institutionalized racism deeply rooted in the system, evils like police brutality, the harsh economic injustice, exploitation of resources by 1% capitalists, poverty and homelessness, then we have to stop all illegal wars on other nations, bring back the troops, stop bullying other nations and treating them like animals, stop meddling in other nations' affairs, be it Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, Syria, or Afghanistan. Let's not make this one event a ritual. Let's take a message, a resolution, not to come back. Let's take a stance, a tall stance. Let's stand tall to bring this resistance into our daily lives by using the tools of the Zionists, for example, social media, in our own benefit. And we must organize events and demonstrations, not remaining silent to injustice and occupation with our utmost capacity that we have. As Hussein once said, staying silent under oppression is as if you're part of that oppression, and the days of the oppressors are numbered, and this is a promise of God. Thank you so much.
Stay up here. Stay up here. You mentioned Imam Hussein in your beautiful remarks, and thank you for coming here and giving these remarks. And I got to tell you, I've spent a lot of time in Iran, and it was in my travels in Iran that I developed a deep admiration for the Shia revolutionary tradition of standing against injustice. And I really want to thank you for coming here and making these bold remarks, and doing so. I want to thank you so much. So thank you very much for giving such a spirited remark, for calling out imperialism and Zionism, and doing everything you can. I want to thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. So I just did see that Maduro has spoken up about the killing of Nasrallah.
El 28 de septiembre quiero expresar y ratificar toda la solidaridad de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela con el pueblo árabe palestino de Gaza, con el pueblo árabe del Líbano, que está siendo víctima de un genocidio, de ataques terroristas del gobierno de Netanyahu, un asesino que solo recuerda a Hitler. Recientemente hizo uno de sus últimos crímenes aborrecibles: atacar con aviones de guerra de última generación edificios de apartamentos y asesinar a más de 1000 hombres, mujeres y niños en el Líbano, en Beirut. ¿Quién puede tolerar eso en el mundo? Más de 1000 asesinados por ataques de la aviación criminal de Netanyahu y miles de heridos. Más de 500 de los asesinados, niños, niñas, mujeres, ancianos. Y hoy se dio a conocer el asesinato de un líder del mundo musulmán, de los pueblos árabes, el señor Hassan Nasrallah, secretario general de Hezbollah, y quiero expresar a nombre del bloque histórico revolucionario de las fuerzas bolivarianas de Venezuela, la solidaridad con Hezbollah, con su familia, con el pueblo del Líbano. Y repudiar este crimen. Lo quieren justificar, pero para asesinarlo atacaron edificios, urbanizaciones y mataron a cientos de personas. ¿Cómo se puede llamar eso? Crimen. Y el ataque lo ordenó desde la sede de Nueva York de Naciones Unidas. Y los cobardes del mundo callan. Pero los pueblos rebeldes, nadie nos callará la voz. Por eso le hago un llamado a los pueblos del mundo, a los pueblos musulmanes, a los pueblos árabes, a levantar su voz y a solidarizarse con el pueblo palestino, con el pueblo del Líbano.
Yeah. So those are strong words from Maduro. Some nights I get on here and I give a very long, powerful speech. I did that last night. I went over the history of the Iranian Revolution. I went over the history of modern Russia and where Putin came from. And I think my remarks about the Iranian Revolution and all that are pretty relevant in understanding Hezbollah, because Nasrallah and Hezbollah are very much inspired by the Iranian Revolution. 1979, Khomeini led the Islamic Revolution of Iran, and then Hezbollah emerged as the Shia Muslim revolutionary organization of Lebanon, inspired by their particular revolutionary ideology. It's a direct outgrowth of the Islamic Revolution of Iran. But right now I'm going to do the roll call, and then I'm going to start answering people's questions. I feel like tonight might be a good night to put on some revolutionary music, so I might do that before I start answering people's questions. Well, let's do the roll call. Names and locations, names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations, names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations, names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. We got George Muniz in Sydney. We got Lawrence Johnson in Chicago. Are you coming to our workshop? St. David's, Bermuda. Work in progress in Ottawa. Alexander in Norway. Chris in West Virginia. Courtney in Northern Virginia. London. Bendigo, Australia. David Fox. Jonathan C. in Los Angeles. JT24 in Mississippi. Auckland, New Zealand. Brooklyn in the house. Philip High. Uzi in the UK, Sydney, Australia, Dan Niswander in Los Angeles, Joe in Los Angeles, Pakistan, Alex in Brazil, Rachel in Winder, Georgia, Daniel Ward in the UK, John in Switzerland, Ariel in Brooklyn, Ed in Louisville. Very, very, very good. Mikhail in Ontario, Jenny in Cincinnati, Brooklyn, Ontario, Megan, Mark Jones in Utica, New York, Tony in Tasmania, Dave Johnson in Kenosha, Wisconsin, South Africa, Steve in Boston, Philip in Scotland, Mohsen in Iran. Welcome, welcome, well. Scablands, Washington State. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tony in Tasmania, St. Adele in Quebec. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations, names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. John Keys in Missouri. Four Oaks, North Carolina. Donnie Wallace. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Names and locations. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. I woke up this morning. My throat was feeling a little bit sore, but it wasn't really sore. It was just dry, right? And my voice, I can speak fine, but my voice is deeper, which is good. Four Oaks, North Carolina. Anway in India. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Patrick in Maine. Scott in Maryland. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, the Rage Against the War Machine rally happened in Washington, D.C. today. I know a few people who've been watching it were sending us highlights and stuff. I'm certainly paying attention, really honored that we were able to be sponsors of it. Our Center for Political Innovation logo was all over it. I'm really glad that we were able to sponsor that event. Names and locations. Well, look, there's a lot of people who were in the chat there who I think could come to our workshop. Lawrence in Chicago, John Keyes in Missouri, Wisconsin. There's a lot of people that are in the Midwest area that really should come to our workshop. You won't regret it. Go and register right now for our very, very important workshop that we have coming up in a few weeks. Peter Coffin is going to be there. It's going to be really, really great. So I hope that you will go ahead and register so that we can follow up with you. I would really love to see you there and meet you there. And I'd love you to meet our team, because at the end of the day, what matters is carrying out operations. We're not going to win the internet, right? We have operations to carry out. We need to build a real anti-imperialist movement here in America. And there is no alternative to that. We must build an anti-imperialist movement in this country. And so in order to do that, we need you to come and join our events, meet people, and talk about how we can do it. We are aiming for a huge convention next summer with over 400 people, and we can very easily do that. I am convinced we can do it, but it starts now. We're already raising money for it. We are already figuring out who the coalition of speakers to give talks are going to be and all of that. Oh, we got Helen. Shout out to Helen in Woolley. Ellen Woolley. Good to see you. We're figuring it out. We have to build an anti-imperialist movement. So if you're available to drive in for a Saturday of anti-imperialist education, I would encourage you to do so. It's going to be very, very good. Go and register. We need as many people there as possible. Good food, good speeches, get to know people, etc. Now, on that note, I thought for tonight we'd put on some music. There is a rock band from the 70s, a rather obscure one, that was called Prairie Fire, and they were associated with the Revolutionary Communist Party. And they have two songs that I like. One is called New China, and the other is called 200 Years. And they are both anti-imperialist songs. The one about China is about, an American delegation that went to China. And the one 200 Years they wrote for the bicentennial, right? To protest against the 200-year anniversary of the United States. The Revolutionary Communist Party organized a rally called for the bicentennial, in which there's a very famous photo. We won't fight another rich man's war. So I am going to put on 200 Years. Then after that, maybe we'll put on the China song, and then I'll start answering people's questions. So if you got any more questions, keep them rolling in. I can go for quite a while tonight. It's only 9:45. I probably need to wrap this up around midnight, but I got a good 2 hours in me here. So just hit me with your best shot. Send me some questions. That's what I'm here to do.
When I get home from work each day, it feels like I just worked 200 years. When I see all the bills I gotta pay, seems like to take 200 years. And now we hear this summer celebrate the latest boss's game. But who they calling us when every day we're fighting them? 200 years. 200 years is bicentennial is for. 200 years. The rich want us to swear for them. 200 more. 200 years. 100 years these parasites have sucked our blood. But let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough. Well, that must have been some party dumped that British tea back then 200 years. And that must have been some struggle dumping British tyranny back 200 years. But sending King George packing made the rich here free to build their own empire and change and wage slavery. 200 years. 200 years is bicentennial is for. 200 suck our blood. Let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough. Well, our class built this country. We have labored, we have slaved 200 years. Oh, but they're the class that runs it, taking all the wealth we've made 200 years.
They're coming down, their time is up. 200 years is long
and their
enough.
rule has brought us misery, unemployment, crime, and war. But every decent thing we have, our class has fought on for.
200 years.
200 years.
This bicentennial is for 200 years.
The rich want us to slave for them 200 more.
200 years.
200 years. These parasites have sucked our blood. Let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough. They've hired the finest minds to find out how their system's gonna last 200 years.
It's coming down, their time is up. 200 years is long
And they're
enough.
working overtime to cover up the past 200 years.
They're coming down, their time is up. 200 years is long
They
enough.
promise peace and plenty as they plan another war. But they've got a little problem, we're not taking any more.
200 years.
200 years, this bicentennial is for
200 years.
The rich want us to slave for them 200 more.
200 years.
200 years, these parasites have sucked our blood. Let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough. Fellow workers, to our class belongs the future, and it isn't going to wait 200 years. Oh no. Well, the rich man's time is up, and he's going to get the cake in a few more years. And with their systematic museums, with the relics of the past, we'll build that future when the workers rule at last. 200 years, 200 years, this bicentennial is for 200 years. Want us to slave for them 200 more. 200 years, 200 years, these parasites have sucked our blood. But let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough. We'll bring them down, their time is up. 200 years is long enough. We'll bring them down, their time is up. 200 years is long enough. We'll bring them down, their time is up. 200 years is long enough. 200 years, 200 years. This bicentennial is for 200 years. The rich want us to slave for them 200 more. 200 years, 200 years. These parasites have sucked our blood. Let's get them off our backs. Say it, let's get them off our backs. All right, let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough.
So that song was written for the rally, July 4th, 1976, in which this historic photo was taken. And I love this photo because this photo, we actually used it for the cover of our textbook, right? This is the photo. And this is a group of Vietnam veterans that were part of Vietnam Veterans Against the War, which was the Vietnam veteran organization led by the Revolutionary Communist Party. And they marched in the parade, black and white together in their military uniforms. We won't fight another rich man's war, down the streets of Philadelphia. A very powerful image, and it shows what an anti-war movement should be, right? An anti-war movement should be a working class movement. It should be a movement against the rich and powerful for whom the wars are waged. And so when we designed the cover of our textbook, because that was such an important part of the history that we go over in the textbook, we used that image for the front of our textbook, Out of the Movement to the Masses. And if you read chapter 3, I talk a lot about that demonstration and why it's so important, and why, even though it was smaller than some of the other rallies that happened in Philadelphia, that demonstration went down in history because the slogan was very, very clear. And that image, I mean, if you look at this image, you get it. You get it when you look at this image. You understand what they are saying. You understand what this working class mobilization was having to say. You get it by looking at this crowd of working class veterans. We won't fight another rich man's war. Yeah, I first wanted to show you that. I want to show you some other things. Right? Hold on. Hold on, just getting some messages here. Yeah, you know, we just have to keep building our anti-imperialist movement. That is what we need to do. And we have no choice. We must build our anti-imperialist movement. And, you know, there's nothing else we can do. And so, you know, as part of doing that, right, this song that I'm going to play now is another song by the same band, Prairie Fire. And it was about their trip to China and what they saw in China. It was about their American delegation's trip to China. I love this song. And I go to communist countries and I go to communist youth festivals, and it just kind of captures the feeling of what is there. Let me show you, very prominently in this song is the sign that they had at the Chinese border back then. And I don't know if they still have this, but this is the sign that they used to have at the border when you went into China during the Mao years. And they might still have this. I don't know. But this is the image. I'm going to put it on the screen, which is difficult to do because of StreamYard, but whatever, right? And when you entered China in the 1960s and 70s, at the border of the country, right, they had this banner, right, that with it was like the welcome to China sign, but it didn't say welcome to China. Hold on, I'll show you what it said. It basically the song is themed around this banner that they had. And I see more super chats coming in, and I'm going to answer everyone's questions. Like I said, I've got another good 2 hours in me here. The night is young, as they say. But this was the banner that they would have at the border when you walked across the border into the People's Republic of China. At that point, British Hong Kong was still a British protectorate. But when you left Hong Kong, or you left you left Mongolia, or wherever you were coming from, right at the border, when you walked into the Chinese People's Republic, they would have this banner on display. Just trying to hold on, just trying to get the image to work here. All right, let me put it up because it's very prominent in the song. And basically the song is themed around it. And I'll just tell you, let me just get it on the screen here. Here we go. All right. This was the banner that they would have at all the entrances to the country. It said, "Long live the great unity of the people of the world." And that was what they had on display at all of the entrances to the People's Republic of China. Long live the great unity of the people of the world. And it kind of expressed their feeling that they didn't want people to be divided by nationality, right? And that they saw China as the center of global revolution and against imperialism. We use the World Democratic Youth Federation pledge, at our CPI events. Every Zoom call on Saturday begins with the Center for Political Innovation pledge. That's how we begin every Saturday Zoom call. And I feel like, that pledge was written by the World Democratic Youth Federation, which was the organization started by the Soviet Union with the intention of preventing anything like World War II from ever happening again, right? After World War II, the Soviet Union said they wanted to bring the youth of the world together to make sure that nothing like the horrendous events of the Second World War ever happened again. And so, they did the World Democratic Youth Federation pledge. And it doesn't say long live the great unity of the people of the world, but it calls for the unity of all young people, right? That's what it calls for. So I'm going to put on this song, New China, that talks about this banner. And then from there, I'm going to show you the CPI Youth Pledge, show you a couple more things, then we'll start answering questions. And keep the questions rolling in. Keep the questions rolling in.
Got to the border, we began to walk under two flags flying over the bridge we were to cross. One was the bloody British rag of imperialism, casting its shadow over poverty, starvation, vicious exploitation in Hong Kong. The other was the flaming red flag of revolution and socialism, telling us all, the people of the world, the time has come to come along. This ain't just any old border that we are standing on. It stands between two systems, one dire, one young and strong. And then we crossed that bridge into China, saw a great banner up ahead. Its meaning set my heart a pounding, and this is what that banner is. Long live the great unity of the peoples of the world. Long live the great unity of the peoples of the world. Went to a steel mill, saw people working hard, but there were no bosses. The workers ran the job. They worked 10 hours, 6 days a week, on great machines built by their own hand. They labored not for some rich man's profits, but to meet the needs of people of the land. And they are building with such a spirit of revolution and socialism, for they are masters of their own future. The working class is in command. Talked with an older worker. He said many worries are gone. If one is sick or injured, they are provided for. We have no fear of rising prices, no unemployment will you find. There's always more to be done to build China, not just for us but to free mankind. Long live the People's Republic, long live working class rule. Long live the People's Republic, long live working class rule. We arrived in Shanghai, where before it was free. Dope and prostitution and starving people filled the streets. And now these people stand up united, providing for the needs of all. Decent housing, health care, education, they decide now they are the law. And man, I felt so damn proud of China, of revolution socialism. Just look at what our class has accomplished. Just look at what the struggle has won. We talked with men and women, now working side by side, about our many struggles for freedom so long denied. They said, comrades, China is with you. This is your country as well as ours. The struggles of the people united will be triumphant. We have the power. Long live the great unity, yeah, of the peoples of the world. Long live the great unity of the peoples of the world. No, I missed my family, wish they were there with me. I knew they're back home struggling to change society. And I admit I hated to leave China. You know that freedom kinda grows on you. But now I feel such deep determination to do the job we all have to do. Remember, people, our day's coming. Make revolution, build socialism, to do away with class exploitation, to end oppression once and for all. And I have learned a lesson that I will always heed. The fight to end oppression, the working class must lead. For we will build us up a great movement to sweep away the system we're in. And nothing gonna stop us from doing it. We will fight and we will win. Long live the people's republic. Long live working class rule. Long live the people's republic. Long live working class rule.
Yeah, so that is the new China anthem. And, you know, as they were going through that anthem, what did they keep repeating? You know, long live the great unity of the people of the world, right? That banner that they had. And I think that that is very similar to the pledge of the Center for Political Innovation. I think that's a very similar sentiment. You know, so I'm going to show you the pledge. So last year, you know, there was the Rage Against the War Machine that just happened today. There was the one that happened last February. And we did like an after party for Scott Ritter because Scott Ritter was banned from speaking at last year's Rage Against the War Machine rally. We love Scott. And so we had an after party, a reception for Scott Ritter, and about 200 people came to it. And we opened it after people were, you know, as people were finishing eating and stuff, we opened it with our pledge. So I'm going to show that part. So there we go.
It's a mighty hard road that my poor hands have hoed. My poor feet have traveled a hot, dusty road. Out of your dust bowl and westward we rode, and your desert was hot, and your mountain was cold. I've worked in your orchards of peaches and prunes. I've slept on the ground in the light of the moon. At the edge of the cities you'll see us, and then we come with the dust and we go with the wind. California, Arizona, I harvest your crops. Well, it's north up to Oregon to gather your hops. To take the beets from your ground cut, the grapes from your vine, to set on your table your light, sparkling wine. Green pastures aplenty from dry desert ground, from the Grand Coulee Dam where the waters run down. Every state in the Union us migrants have been, and we'll work in this fight, and we'll fight till we win. It's always we've rambled that river and I, all along your green valley. I'll work till I die. This land I'll defend with my life if need be, 'cause my pastures of plenty must always be free. It's a mighty hard road that my poor hands have hoed. My poor feet have traveled a hot, dusty road. Out of your dust bowl and westward we rode, and your desert was hot, and your mountain was cold. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Let me get this out. I'm gonna get it. There we go. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm your MC tonight, yo. All right, here we go. We're gonna start, to get everybody to know we're getting started, we're gonna start with Dare to Struggle. 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 That's right. I love it. All right. So, I'm going to ask you guys, we're going to do something that we start off every CPI event with. And it's a moment of respect. I'll tell you a little history where it comes from. It comes from the Soviet Union, but hear me out, libertarians. I think you'll like it. Stick around. It was written by the World Democratic Youth Federation, and it came out in 1947 as a way to bring the youth of the world together against war. So anytime we have a meeting, we recite the Pledge of Unity. We put up our right hand, and you don't need to know it because I'm going to say it, and you can repeat it, all right? And we've replaced youth with people, so here we go. The CPI Pledge of Unity. Hold up your right hand. Everybody stand up if you wouldn't mind. Get involved. Come on, do me a solid. All right. Are you ready? Solidarity for the working class. Here we go. We pledge that we shall remember this unity. Forged at the end of the Second World War. Not only today, not only this week. This year, but always. Until we have built the world we have dreamed of and fought for. We pledge ourselves to build the unity of the people of the world. All races, all colors, all nationalities, all beliefs. To eliminate all traces of fascism from the earth. To build a deep and sincere international friendship among the peoples of the world. To keep a just and lasting peace. To eliminate want, frustration, and enforced idleness. We have come to confirm the unity of all people. To salute our comrades who have died. And pledge our word that skillful hands, keen brains, and bold enthusiasm shall never more be wasted in war. Amen. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's the Pledge of Unity that we start every CPI event with, the Pledge of Unity. And it's very similar to that banner, long live the great unity of the people of the world, right? It's a similar sentiment. Unify the people of the world, stand against war, no more killing, no more injustice, eradicate poverty, eradicate scarcity and the scarcity mindset that is the cause of so much war and so much injustice, build and develop. And that is the pledge that we base ourselves on, right? And that's the pledge from the Soviet Union that they formed the World Democratic Youth Federation. I did want to show you all what was the highlight of that night. Scott Ritter had been banned from speaking at the rally that had happened that day. And so we opened the floor to Scott. And this was the epic moment when Scott came up to the podium after being banned and smeared widely on the internet and having every nasty thing in the world said about him. We decided that Scott was our brother. Scott was a great anti-imperialist. And so here's what happened.
Ideas are great, but the reason that the Center for Political Innovation exists is to put on events like this, to give a platform to ideas we don't widely hear in the United States, to educate people about anti-imperialism and socialism. And that is why it is really an honor tonight to bring forward our guest of honor, a real hero, someone who deserves to be heard from the heavens. Everyone should hear what this man has to say. Scott Ritter is here. Scott Ritter is here. We are proud that Scott Ritter is here. This is a hero. This is a hero right here. We love you, Scott. We love you. Go ahead and give us some words. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. To be honest, I thought I was just coming here to a reception to say hi to people, and speaking is, hopefully it's a bonus. Listening, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, Caleb. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. And I want to thank everybody here for coming out. I know some people traveled a long way to come to this rally. And great journeys begin one step at a time. And we're on a great journey. And today was the first step. And the people that didn't come here, they're one step behind us. And when you take the next step, they're two steps behind us. So you guys are the winners, and they got issues. And I applaud you. So again, thanks for coming out.
Yeah, that was the epic moment. And that shows how important our organization is. If we has never happened before. It booted me out of StreamYard, and now I'm back. But if CPI didn't exist, moments like that wouldn't happen. Right? It was our ability to exist as an organization that made that happen. Look, CPI is a really important entity, and I'm not going to lie to you and say that it's not. It is. And look, we've got some plans. We're doing every moment, whether we're at the DNC handing out books, handing out growth booklets, handing out my Kamala Harris book and exposing Kamala Harris at the DNC. We got 1,000 copies of the Kamala Harris book that was banned. We got that distributed at the DNC. We're always doing something. And I don't want to give away any secrets, okay? But I want to show you an image. That's all I can do is show you this image. All right? This is a beautiful image that was designed by Peter Coffin. Peter Coffin designed this beautiful image. It's coming up on the screen. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to ruin anything, and I don't want to, make any promises that, things are going to happen as they happen. But you're going to be seeing a lot of this image in the coming weeks. You are going to be seeing a lot of this image because this is the image that people need to see. With Israel ruthlessly murdering Nasrallah, with the war in Ukraine and Biden threatening long-range missiles. This is what people need to see and what they need to hear. Only peace can make America great again. 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 Let me just repeat that. Only peace can make America great again. And we, as the Center for Political Innovation, as an anti-imperialist organization, I don't want to give anything away, no big surprises or anything, but let me just put it this way. You're going to be seeing a lot of this image pretty soon. If everything goes well, this image is going to be seen by a lot more than the 200 people watching this stream right now. And we're doing our best to make a difference. We're doing our best to nudge the world in the direction of peace. Which brings me one more song, just one more, I promise. One more song before we start answering people's super chats and Rumble rants. I know, that we want to start answering people's questions, but one more song. There's one more song I want to play because I will work with anybody. Okay, I will work with anybody, and I have learned, if there's anything that I have learned in the last year, it's that you will find friends in the strangest places. You will find people who agree with you, people you've worked with for years that'll betray you and stab you in the back, and you will go on a whim to strange places and meet people who completely disagree with you, who turn into some of the best friends you ever had. And that is a weird aspect of the time that we are living in, okay? It's a weird aspect of the time that we are living in. And I'm just telling you, in your life, right? Everything you think you know about politics, everything you think you know about world events, or even about religion is wrong, okay? Everything you know is wrong, as Weird Al Yankovic famously said in the 1980s. Everything you know is wrong. We are in a time period where everything that you know is wrong. And I have found good friends in strange places, and I have found backstabbing traitors and people who don't seem to care in the places where I should be finding friends. And I have found amazing people in places I never would have dreamed of going. It's really bizarre. It's a wild ride that we are in. We are in a time where nothing is as it seems. Everything is dividing, and all the old rules are being rewritten. Let me just put it that way. All the old rules are being rewritten. All of what you think you know has changed. And if we aren't committed to getting the job done, right? If we're committed to arguing on the internet or feeling like we're the smartest people, we're not going to get the job done. But if we're committed to getting the job done, we are going to find friends anywhere we can make them. And we are going to do anything that we have to do in order to make the world a better place and in order to stop World War III. We have to do whatever is necessary. We have to learn from different people, learn the knowledge that people we never thought of talking to could give us. And that's why, I am honored that Los Angeles Family Church flew me out to LA couple months ago to give a speech about peace with North Korea. I'm really honored that they did that. It was great. And the event that we had about North Korea, it began with this song, right? And this is the anthem, the Family Federation Unification Church anthem for peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. And they began, and a crowd of, we had about 20 to 30 CPI people who turned out, and we had about 50 or 60 of them, and in this very, very conservative Republican anti-communist church, we had an amazing evening of unity dedicated to peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. It was amazing because the world is changing, and everything you thought you know is wrong. And so I'm going to put the Heavenly Korea anthem, the song of peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula, on. then I'm going to start answering questions. And I hope, it looks like here coming up, we might be having an event at the Manhattan Family Church. I don't know, not yet confirmed, but we had an amazing event at the LA Family Church. And now we're going to have, we're doing some exciting stuff with this banner. And it looks like we might be having a Korea event at the Manhattan Family Church. I don't know. I'm waiting for confirmation. But because of that, I am going to put on Heavenly Korea.
God found his chosen people in the eastern land of morning sun, shining brightly for the world to see the purple rose of Sharon lights away. Come with people all around the world, let's unite into one. Let's achieve God's cherished desire, true love for all humanity. Unite, let's unite into one. Sing about one heavenly Korea, of eternal peace and happiness. Roads of peace now come together, far beyond the bounds of land and sea. Build for God a heavenly new world, giving joy and liberty to all. Peace ambassadors all around the world, let's unite into one. Let's achieve God's cherished desire, true peace for all humanity. Unite, let's unite into one. Sing about one heavenly Korea, with eternal peace and happiness. Hand in hand the two Koreas, with the shining age of love and hope. From Mount Hala to Mount Betu, realizing peaceful unity. Come you people, the beacon of humanity, let's unite into one. Let's achieve God's cherished desire, a heavenly unified world. Unite, let's unite into one. Sing about one heavenly Korea, with eternal peace and happiness.
So there you go. Only peace can make America great again. And out of all this darkness and all of this pessimism and all of this resentment and hopelessness and scarcity mindset and jealousy, we have got to be a ray of hope in this dark world. We have got to be pushing forward with an optimistic vision and giving people a reason to never back down and never surrender and keep going in the face of it all. Give people the comradeship, the brotherhood and sisterhood that they are longing for in this dark world of coldness and pain. We will not back down and we will not surrender. And we have a job to play. We have a job to do, and we have a role to play in changing the world. And I got to tell you, you have never been to an event until you've been to a CPI event, right? You just saw a video of our event with Scott Ritter and the Pledge of Unity, and you have never been to an event until you've been to a CPI event. We do something very, very special. And this CPI is not meant for you to be part of an internet fandom. It's meant for you to be part of a community, a family of people that are dedicated to building a whole new America, a government of action to fight for working families. So if you can join us at our upcoming workshop, please register, right? People that are in the Midwest, Chicago, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, register. Please register. We need you at our workshop. We've got to build the movement. There is no way out of this without a movement. Let me reemphasize, there is no way out of this without a movement. And that's not an easy solution that people want. People want to be able to press A or press B, you know, and I'm just telling you the hard answer. Gabby and I have talked about this lately. The only answer to this crisis is building a movement. Building a movement. That is the only way out of this madness. We've got to build a movement. We've got to build a movement of people that are dedicated to opposing imperialism and building a brave new world. We need a movement of Americans who love their country and love their community and oppose the big bankers and war makers and monopolies that are grinding the world into poverty and leading us into new wars. We need to build a movement. So we need you at this workshop. We need you in this workshop. We need to build a movement. Jenny, are you coming? Are you coming, Jenny? Because we need you there. We need everybody at the workshop. Register today, sign up, and come to our workshop and find other people and find out how you can get involved in the movement that we are building for a government of action that will fight for working families. Working families first, build the economy, not the empire. We need you at our workshop. We need you there. We need you there because we have a lot that needs to be done, and the world is waiting for you to take up the challenge of history. There isn't going to be some savior who comes out of the blue to solve the problem for you, right? You tried that with Obama. It didn't work. You tried that with Trump last time. Didn't work, right? The only way out of this is to build a real solid block of people to stand against war and empire. And so we need you to register and come to the workshop. So now I'm going to start answering people's questions. The first questions came in as Rumble Rants. Doc Green for Peace said, I'm assuming Israel is funded by the higher levels of capital. Is that correct? How do we think of the Israel-Palestine in terms of anti-monopoly coalition? Well, one of the problems is that, you know, while Israel's directly funded by our tax dollars, right, which it is, right, $18 million every day in our taxpayer money goes to fund Israel. But on top of that, you know, Israel has a very big network of fundraising apparatus around the world. One of the first jobs I had when I came to New York City, I worked for an Israeli charity fundraising company. I was a telemarketer. I called people up on the phone. It was a job I kind of regret doing, to tell you the truth. I mean, it wasn't directly, wasn't directly raising money for Israel. It was like raising money for like ambulances in Israel and stuff like that. But, you know, I look back on that now and I think, cool. You know, I think that wasn't great, but it was a job, you know, and, you know, there are a number of lower level capitalists who are in bed with Israel, you know, and the Netanyahu, that's the divide. So Israel as an entity that's part of U.S. imperialism, right? That's the liberal Israelis, but the hard right Israelis, the Netanyahu crowd, they don't really care about the long-term interests of American imperialism. And, you know, Sheldon Adelson, you know, and his crowd, right? There is a layer of lower level capitalists who don't really care about Ukraine, who don't even really care about China, but are fanatically pro-Israel, and some of the most vicious pro-Israel crowd. And they're in with the new right in Europe, and they're in with, you know, they're in with Trump. And that's why there's a lot of very, very good, you know, people that are very, very good on international issues in the anti-imperialist camp, that as soon as Israel comes up, they're very bad, right? You know, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, you know, there's people like that that are very good on a lot of issues, but you start talking about Israel, they just lose it, because the lower levels of capital, there is a lower level capitalist pro-Israel faction. But ultimately, the mainstream of Zionism, you know, is liberal Zionism. That is a little bit different. But anyway, there we go. There we go. All right. And then there's another Rumble rant. All right. Illinois state constitution, written in 1970, declares ending poverty and inequality in the preamble. Do you think Governor J.B. Pritzker has read it? Well, that's funny. You know, it's interesting. During the 1970s, there were a number of laws. It wasn't just the preamble of the Illinois Constitution, but there was also the Hawkins Full Employment Act. And it was a law that was passed that said the government should work to make sure that there is full employment. And it's law, right? It is technically the law. The government should make sure there's full employment, but there's no stipulation, there's no requirement. And there's a lot of very vague, during the 70s, there was a lot of like, because there was an activist movement and because the black movement was very active and because the Vietnam War movement, there was a lot of like weird symbolic things. So it doesn't surprise me that that in 1970, they pass a constitution for the state of Illinois that says, oh, we should end poverty. There's plenty of poverty in Illinois because there's no requirement. There's no like, and ending poverty by doing blank. It's just like, yeah, poverty is bad. And I'm sure every politician, if you asked them, every single member of the Illinois state legislature, if you said to them, hey, is poverty good? They'd say, why? No, I'm against poverty. But what are they going to do about it? That's the question, right? And just like unemployment, right? The Hawkins unemployment bill was passed by Jimmy Carter, and it was this great achievement. The government should make sure everyone has a job. Well, there's unemployment everywhere. So what good was that? And there's a lot of weird things like that, especially if you go back to the 1970s. There was a lot of weird legislation of that variety that is out there. And I don't quite know. What to make of it. But that's what I would take from that. All right. So now the super chats. How do we deal with those who equate Hezbollah with Al-Qaeda and ISIS? Well, we have to patiently explain that Hezbollah fought against Al-Qaeda and ISIS on the battlefields of Syria. Hezbollah has killed Al-Qaeda and ISIS fighters more than anybody else. When the Syrian government that protects Christians was under attack from Wahhabi extremists, the first military group to come to their aid was Hezbollah. And Hezbollah deployed its forces to Syria, and they fought ISIS and Al-Qaeda on the battlefield. That's what you got to tell them. And that, they want to characterize all, because if you're in a European white country, people, you tend to think that all Muslims kind of run together in your mind because we're not Muslims over here. So it doesn't make sense to us. But not all Muslims are the same. Not all people in the Middle East are the same. This is kind of how they convinced us after 9/11 that we should invade Iraq. Why should we have invaded Iraq after 9/11? Well, because Saddam Hussein is a Muslim. He's an Arab. And don't you know they're all the same? Well, they're not all the same. Osama bin Laden was a wealthy Saudi, and he was a Wahhabi. And Saddam Hussein was a secular Arab nationalist and a socialist. It's a completely different ideology, completely different country, completely different worldview. But to a lot of Americans, they're all the same, right? And we have to fight against that, right? And, there's not much more. We have to educate people, and it's not easy. But we have to point out that the American government has funded Al-Qaeda, right? The USA armed Al-Qaeda in Libya, armed Al-Qaeda in Syria, armed Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan to fight against the Soviet Union, armed Al-Qaeda in Chechnya to fight against Russia. The US government has armed Al-Qaeda, and that since this war on terror has begun, the U.S. government has been fighting everyone except the terrorists. They fought Gaddafi, who was the terrorist enemy, who even tortured Al-Qaeda people after 9/11, offered to torture them for America. Syria, again, enemy of Al-Qaeda, right? Saddam Hussein, enemy of Al-Qaeda, right? That the U.S. government has been acting as Al-Qaeda's air force. And what happened after the USA invaded Iraq? Al-Qaeda and ISIS got stronger. What happened after the USA overthrew and destabilized Libya? Al-Qaeda and ISIS and terrorist groups like that got stronger. In fact, one of the terrorists who fought against Gaddafi in Libya went back to Britain and blew up the Manchester concert. The Manchester bomber was an anti-Gaddafi Al-Qaeda guy who had been fighting against Gaddafi, and then he came back to Manchester and he blew up the concert. We have to point out that our government isn't fighting the terrorists. Our government is fighting the enemies of the terrorists. And that needs to be pointed out. And that especially the liberals, Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, the Hillary Clinton State Department, their whole strategy is using the Muslim Brotherhood and using the Saudi Wahhabis and using terrorists to fight against enemies of the United States. Instead of fighting against Al-Qaeda, they tried to recruit Al-Qaeda. And this is some of the disagreements behind Sorry. I have got spring allergies, but this is some of the disagreements, behind when Trump did his Muslim ban. He prevented visas for anybody from certain countries. And if you look at all those countries, those are all countries where the U.S. government was bribing Al-Qaeda fighters with visas to come to the United States. Go out and fight against Assad, Al-Qaeda person, and then we'll give you a visa to come live in New York City. And if you look at a lot of these terrorists who've committed terrorist attacks, Omar Mateen, the Pulse nightclub shooter, his father was in Afghanistan and he fought against the Soviet Union. His father was a Mujahideen anti-Soviet fighter. And then his son came in, shot up a nightclub. The New Jersey bomber, Ahmed Rahami, also fought against the Soviet Union. The Zarnev brothers, who blew up the Boston Marathon. Who were they? They were Chechens, and their parents fought against Russia. They were Al-Qaeda, anti-Russian extremists and fighters. And you go down the line, these terrorists, they tend to be the children when the American government recruits extremists, Muslim extremists, to fight against communism and to fight against the Soviet Union and to fight against Russia and to fight against Arab nationalist governments. And then it gives them visas as a reward. Oh, come and live in America. Well, when they get here, their kids grow up to be terrorists. And so, Trump, that was what his so-called Muslim ban was about. No, Israel has not defeated Hezbollah. Israel has not defeated Hezbollah. Let me just put it that way. But I'm not even going to really entertain that one with a response. I find it difficult to believe Iran will not respond, even though many Iranian civilians will be massacred. Yeah, they're going to respond. I mean, how does World War III not come out of this situation? That is what has got me so worried. How do we not get World War III at this point? How do we not get World War III out of this? This is terrifying. I mean, this is a scary, scary, scary situation, right? I mean, how can people not be angry at Israel? Even if you support Israel, even if you think Nasrallah was a terrorist, the result of this is going to be World War III. You can't do something like this, and expect that the result won't be World War III. So there you go. Yes, Iran is going to respond. Yes, there's going to be a lot of killing and a bloodbath, and this is a nightmare. And anyone with common sense is going to say, I mean, this is a really, really scary situation. It really is. I don't know what's going to happen in the next few days. I really, really don't. I don't know what's going to happen because this is pretty intense. I mean, Iran is going to have to respond. There's no way that Iran cannot respond to this situation. Iran is going to have to respond. They're going to have to respond. There's no way they can not respond. And on top of that, Iran is not only going to respond, but there's going to be other chaos throughout the region. And I mean, this is not, when they talk about, I think that White House statement from Kamala Harris said that Nasrallah was destabilizing the Middle East. There is nothing more destabilizing than what they just did. I mean, this is, this act of killing the leader of Hezbollah, this is going to destabilize things. So why did Ayn Rand leave the Soviet Union? What's her background? Well, Ayn Rand's father was a chemist. He owned a chemistry company, a chemical manufacturing company in the Soviet Union. During the Civil War, they had what they called military communism, where basically because the country was at war and blockaded and millions of people were dying, they moved soldiers around and everything in the country kind of was nationalized. And so like she had to share her home with poor people and it was kind of traumatizing. And she went, and in the Soviet Union, she went and studied cinematography at a Soviet university. And she got a degree in filmmaking because the Soviet government was really pushing filmmaking. Sergei Eisenstein was making some of the best films in the world during those years. So Ayn Rand studied cinematography, and then she got a visa. Like they gave her permission to leave the country with the understanding that she would go to Hollywood to study American filmmaking, right? And so they let her go to the United States, and she was supposed to go to Hollywood and study American filmmaking techniques. But she took her free education she got, and she went to Chicago to live with her relatives, and then she went to Hollywood, and she became an anti-communist. And she testified before the House Un-American Activities Committee and told on screenwriters that she worked with, accused them of that were members of the Communist Party, and she was, that's how her career really took off, is that she was an anti-communist. And yeah, I mean, she was from a wealthy family, and that during the Russian Civil War, I mean, it was a civil war. Millions of people died. And so it's not surprising that her family's mansion, her family was quite wealthy. They had to let poor people live in the mansion. They had to let soldiers stay in the mansion because it's a civil war. But she really felt that her father was this self-made man, this great, guy who'd started his own business, and the Soviet communist government was violating him. And she was traumatized by the experience. War is an ugly thing. And this is one thing that I really want to encourage people to remember is war is really, really ugly. And in all wars, all sides do horrendous, unforgivable things. And the result of war is a huge amount of trauma and resentment and rage. That's why war should be avoided. I don't doubt that there were probably things that were done, maybe to Ayn Rand's family, but at least to people in the Soviet Union by the Red Army that were absolutely horrendous and unforgivable and evil. That doesn't mean the Red Army wasn't right, but it means it was an ugly war in which millions of people died. During the U.S. Civil War, there were horrendous atrocities committed by the Union Army. Does that mean slavery was right and Lincoln was wrong? No, Lincoln was still right. But wars tend to be really, really ugly. And a lot of awful atrocities and evil things happen in wars, and unforgivable. It's humanity at its worst. Right. So you have to remember that. And that, Ayn Rand and her family, they were traumatized by what they experienced at the hands of the Bolsheviks. And so they became bitter anti-communists. And with that experience, that trauma, you could show them every bit of data and show them that socialism was working and that the Soviet Union did all these great things. They wouldn't believe you. They would just be traumatized by what happened to them. And that's why, Miami Cubans, people like that, a lot of them have experienced bad things, but that bad thing they experienced doesn't represent all of what communism was or all of everything that went on in their country, but that's their experience. And if you have a traumatizing experience, if you know people who are killed, if you see horrendous massacres and killings happen, you are traumatized by that. You're scarred by that. It is a painful thing that you then have to deal with, and it changes how people see things. Sri Lanka, they elected a Marxist-Leninist, AKD is what he goes by, and that this political party in Sri Lanka that is a Marxist-Leninist political party, it's called like the Popular Liberation Front or something like that, but it's a Marxist-Leninist group with ties to North Korea, and it's a main political party in the country, but they are legit communists and Marxist-Leninists, and they won the elections. And you have to remember, Sri Lanka, it's friendly to China. It's also friendly to the United States. And their agricultural sector was just devastated by what the British BlackRock Corporation did, making them go organic and not use pesticides, and then have a devastatingly low result. And, they've suffered, and China really has heavily invested in that country. And so this political party, the National People Power, it's called, the NPP, the National People Power, they won the elections. And AKD, right? AKD is the leader, right? Anura Kumara Desayanaki, but he goes by AKD. Everyone knows him, kind of like AMLO. He's known as AKD. He's a Marxist-Leninist. He's a communist. He's been to North Korea a number of times, and he's a well-respected political figure in the country, and he ran on an anti-corruption platform, and he's going to be the president of the country, right? The election, the coalition, it's called the National Salvation Front, and they won the elections. But we'll have to see how he does, right? Let's be clear, right? Because in some countries, we've had communists get in, and they don't change anything. And in other countries, we've had people who aren't communists get in, and they do amazing things, right? In El Salvador, for a long time, the leftist communist group was in power, but they didn't change anything. But the current president of El Salvador doesn't call himself a leftist or a communist, but he's trading with China. He's awesome, right? You know, and he's trading with China, and he's building infrastructure, and he's crushing the drug gangs. And that guy, you know, that guy is awesome. He doesn't call himself a communist though, but he's doing more than the communists did. You know, Bukele, right? So, you know, I always say you should judge people by what they do and not what they say, right? And I will tell you that if this new president of Sri Lanka, and this is what I said before, if he's any good, they'll start calling him a dictator. That's what they'll call him, right? If he's any good, they'll call him a brutal dictator. It'll be brutal dictator AKD, who's violating human rights, and that'll mean that he's doing a great job. You know, so that's what you should remember. You know, if he's a legit communist, and if he's actually building up a planned economy and raising his people up out of poverty and moving the country toward socialism and carrying out economic growth and rejecting the imperialists and all of that, they'll start calling him a brutal dictator, and you count on it. So let's see what happens. When I start hearing about AKD, the brutal dictator, I'll know he's doing a good job. And until I hear that, I won't be so sure. So there we go. There we go. How can someone claim that Kamala is a communist? Because to a lot of Trumpers, communist just means bad, right? And they think America right now is communist because communism is bad and America is bad, so it must be communist, right? And this is why arguing with people over what words mean is not productive. And that's, I mean, I've just said to people, look, when you start arguing with people about vocabulary, it's not productive. Argue policy with people, argue, you know, what would make the country a better place, argue what position, but don't argue about what words mean, because what does a communist mean? It means about 100 different things to 100 different people, right? And, you know, there's a lot of people who call themselves communists I don't agree with, I vehemently disagree with. And there's what a lot of working people think communism is, I don't want to give them, right? You know, so, and what communism means in Vietnam and what it means in China, I think is pretty good. Planned economy, raise people out of poverty, eradicate scarcity, opposing the global imperialist system that keeps people poor and is enforced with brutal and ugly wars. What communism means in China, I'm all about it. What communism means in Vietnam, I'm all about it. Venezuela, Nicaragua, I'm all about it. But you know, what communism means in the United States to communists, to people who call themselves communist, no bueno. And to people like the people who think Kamala is a communist, no bueno, right? So we need to stop having a childish loyalty to words, all right? We really need to stop having childish loyalty to words, right? And that in America, not globally, in America, the word communist attracts people that have issues. All right. And there's no way around that. And I've spent my entire adult life doing this, and I'm guilty as charged, right? I came to this, you know, for the same reason. But I'm just telling you, people in America, they get attracted to the word communist and to hammers and sickles because they got some shit they need to go to work through, right? They've got trauma in their past. They feel alienated and angry at the society they live in. And that's all well and good. But in countries that have actual communist revolutions, nobody joins the movement for that reason, right? Nobody joined Mao in China because they were, you know, they were trying to work through their issues. People joined Mao in China because they loved China and they wanted to build a strong new country, and they wanted to work selflessly to build a new strong country. You know, people, no one joined with Mao in China because they thought they were joining Satan. They were joining the devil. Nobody did that. Okay. And that, you know, that in America, communism is the devil, and becoming attracted to communism is like being attracted to the devil. And we need to, you know, and in the more, and even AKD, this guy who just won in, you know, in Sri Lanka, you'll notice his political party, they actually, the People's Liberation Front, that's part of the National Salvation Front, they actually have developed their own unique ideology, right? Even though Marxism-Leninism is the foundation, their ideology, if you actually look at it, they, starting in like the 90s, they developed their own, what they call national ideology, which is a particular interpretation of ML that is specific to their conditions, you know, socialism with Sri Lankan characteristics, right? And look at it. They have a particular, you know, ideology that is specific to their national conditions. Like in the Arab world, they had Baathism. Like in Venezuela, they don't call it communism. It's Bolivarianism, after Simón Bolívar, the liberator of the nation. The revolution in Iran that's created a great anti-imperialist society that is at the center of resistance. It's called the Islamic Revolution, not capitalism, but Islam, right? And that we if we are serious about building a real anti-imperialist movement that could create a non-capitalist socialist society in America, we've got to move past the satanic appeal, right? And if we just start going around waving red flags and hammers and sickles going, we're communists, we're communists, we're going to be cursed with the satanic appeal. Most people will have no interest in joining us. And those who do will have some serious problems that'll make it very, very difficult to work with them, right? Just today, right? I have no idea. I'll just tell you a story from today. True story, right? I am in the Rage Against the War Machine informal chat discussion group. And like 2 weeks ago, I posted our workshop, October 12th, coming up. I posted it in the Rage Against the War Machine chat. And so today I wake up and there's a message. Did you know that another group is having an event on October 12th in Chicago? Who told you? I don't know about any other group having an event but Chicago's a pretty big city, but there's a lot of people having all kinds of events in Chicago on October 12th. We picked that weekend because that's when Peter's available. That's when I'm available. That's why we picked the weekend. I don't know what other group is having an event, and I don't fucking care because I don't have a scarcity mindset. I don't think that the number of people we can recruit to building our movement is this big. I think if we're actually serious, we should want to recruit millions of people. So I'm not worried about, oh shit, somebody joined some other little tiny group. Oh, they won't come to my event. That's not how I operate. I'm aiming for the sky. But these communist groups are so childishly competitive, and they're all led by some guy who's got, daddy issues, right? And wants to prove that he's the Stalin and that no one can mess with him. So I don't even know what other group this is. But I wake up and in the Rage Against the War Machine chat, what other group is how did you know the other group we were having an event? And like they think that this event that we've been planning, they think it's a conspiracy against them. Right? I mean, that's like the ultimate, and they're sitting there going, oh, that Caleb, he scheduled a workshop on October 12th, and that's the same day. I don't even know what group it is, right? Is it the Workers' League or the Revolutionary Communist Socialist Alternative, or I don't even know what group it is. No one will tell me either, right? And they're like, how did you know I don't know. I don't even know of any other group that's having an event. And I think it's hilarious, and I'm sure they're like internally having a purge right now. Who's the CPI spy who told Caleb that we were having an event on October 12th so he could schedule his event on October 12th? Who is the spy? And I'm dying laughing because there's no spy. We just picked a date for our event. Dum. And it's like it's comedy. It's comedy, but I know how these people operate. And it's like they're all I'm the Stalin, I'm the great leader, and you can't work with them because every time you accomplish something, they don't go, oh, that's great. They go, damn it, how can we copy this and do it our way so that we're in charge? That's how they think, right? Literally, some of these people that stabbed me in the back, right? They came to CPI conferences. We were really nice. We gave them a platform. We let them speak. We promoted them. And the whole time they were there, they were thinking, how can we run the event so that, and then I went to one of their events and it was exactly like the CPI conference. They hired the exact same musician to perform. It was everything. It was exactly as we had done it, except way sloppier. Right. And like they didn't have the cameraman there on time and they didn't know what they were. And I'm just like, this is really sad, folks, because if you want to do what I'm doing, do it with me. Right. If you like what I do and you want to do it with me. No, because if you do it, then I can't be the big leader. I got to be important. This is how these people think. And it's really stupid and childish. Right. And I look at a lot of these people and I feel sorry for them. I really do. Right. They're waging some kind of internal battle. They're trying to prove they're the one. Everyone must listen to me. I am so special. And it is so sickening and childish. And, if you want to do what I do, come do it with me, right? We always are really polite. We always roll out the red carpet. And, you know, we're not competing with you, but you've got to compete with us, right? Oh, no, no, no. And it's just, these people need help. They really, really do. And this is the other thing that I've learned. And I just tell you this, I have learned, never get yourself into a situation where, you know, let me just put it this way. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it, right? If you want to do something, just do it, right? Right? Rage Against the War Machine. Scott Ritter wasn't able to speak. So what did we do, right? I'll show you the clip one more time. Scott Ritter was locked out. Scott is our friend. And so what did we do? Did we just get mad about it? No, right? We rented a hotel. We raised the money. We rented the hotel, and this happened.
Right here. We love you, Scott.
That's what happened, because we just did it. No one told us. We didn't ask anyone's permission to rent that hotel. We didn't ask anyone's permission to have that after party. We just did it, right? And that's what you got to do. Just do it, right? And do not get caught up in, oh, no, you got to listen to me, you know, fine. Oh, you don't want me to be part of your thing? Well, we just do what we're going to do anyway. And yes, cooperation is for winners and competition is for losers. I must say, right? And that's Wallace Wattles. I love Wallace Wattles, right? Competition is for losers. And if you have the mindset that the only way you can advance is at somebody else's expense, you're always going to lose. That is called a scarcity mindset. If the pie is only this big, the only way your slice gets bigger is by cutting into somebody else's. And here's the thing. If you think the pie is only going to be this big, it's always just going to be that big, and you're always going to be fighting with other people. And that's a place you don't want to be. That's a scarcity mindset. We need to have the idea that the pie can be bigger than ever, right? If we are going to build the movement this country needs, we should not be fighting over people on the internet that are attracted to the word communist, okay? And if you want to fight with other people on the internet who are attracted to the word communist, good luck to you. We need to build a mass movement that can actually stop World War III and that can bring in people who would never go looking for this stuff. You get it, Patrick. Scarcity mindset is for losers. Abundance mindset is for winners. And communist groups are full of scarcity mindset people, right? I'm the Stalin. I'm the real one. Oh, you know. And every time I have been dealing with these people, you can be so nice to these people. You can publish their articles. You can give them a platform to speak. You can be so nice to them, but the whole time they're thinking, how can we have what you have? You know, because they have this like, must be the Stalin, must be the leader. They have this like dictator fantasy in their head. They are desperate to prove to their father, I'm the strong one. Yeah, you were wrong. I will never be. And it is, you cannot work with these people. No matter how nice you are to these people, you can get jobs for certain people, right? You can get them jobs that change their lives. You can do super nice things for these people. And they will turn around and stab you in the back because they're constantly thinking that everything you have is something they should have because they're the one. I'm the main character in the movie. I'm the one. You just forget it. Forget it. Right? And I can't work with people that have that attitude. I really, really can't. I cannot work with people who have that attitude. And in America, that word attracts people that have that attitude. And I don't want to work with such people. And I am not going to train people to think that way. Right? I mean, it's a joke. Okay? I've said this before and I'll say it again. Right? I'll let you in on a little secret. All right? Okay? I'm just going to let you in on a little secret here. American political parties do not have Politburos. Politburo is not an English word. Okay? And any political party that is serious about becoming a real party in America does not have a Politburo. And when people call me up and say, I'm on the Politburo, it's like, oh, good for you. You're on the Politburo. Oh my God. And you're speaking to me. I'm just so honored to know. I mean, it is a joke, right? These people are jokers. They are jokers and they are fools and they are going to stab each other in the back and they're going to fight with each other. And I am glad to just be miles away from them, right? They've got a Politburo, right? I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. right? And if you can't figure out that this is a joke, what these people are doing is a joke, right? It's not my job to convince you. I have a job to do, right? I have a job to do, and I will do my job with whoever I can, right? With Scott Ritter, with, you know, I mean, we're going to do some great stuff coming up with this. You'll see. I have to get the job done. That is my job. I have to get the job done. I don't have time to fool around and be silly. All right, next word. If the worst comes to worst and nukes are flying and we're 10 minutes away from mad, what do? Pray? I mean, look, you know, some things are out of our hands, Gleb. You know, I mean, I think we can nudge the conversation toward peace. I think we can, you know, promote anti-imperialist messages and all of that. But if nukes are going off, I think, you know, at that point, things are out of our hands. That's one thing I tell people too, right? You know, people are always like catastrophizing. Well, what if the U.S. goes in direct war with Russia? And I'm like, yeah, if the USA goes in direct war with Russia, Russia has nuclear weapons. America has nuclear weapons. We've got some really big problems then, don't we? Well, yeah, but what's going to happen to you, Caleb? Well, what's going to happen to the human race? I mean, at that point, you know, and sometimes people get into this like weird catastrophizing mindset. And I'm like, you do realize that like, if things get as bad as you're saying that they get, at that point, all of our problems are kind of minuscule, and the human race is, you know, people don't get that. There's one thing I've noticed too, right? You get a lot of the people that have this apocalyptic mindset. I want America to fall. I want America to fall apart. It's like, really? You know, have you ever taken a shower? Wasn't it nice when the water turned on in your shower? I was like that when I'm going to go take a shower and I turn the water on, especially when it's hot, nice hot water, get in there with my soap and scrub and my shampoo and my hair. And I was like that. You do realize that if the country collapses, that doesn't happen, right? And when the Soviet Union fell, there were whole regions that didn't have electricity, that didn't have running water. I don't want that to happen. I don't want it to happen. You know, when I'm streaming for you all right now, the reason that I'm able to stream for you right now is because there's internet that works. There's electricity that works, that's got the lights on, that's got my computer powered up, you know, and if America were to collapse, that wouldn't exist either. You don't want to live in a society that collapses, and people don't seem to understand that, right? It's like this, like, oh, it'll be so amazing if America falls. Like, really? That's going to be amazing? I don't think so. Right? And it's like, it's this self-righteous social justice. Oh, America will fall. Think about it, right? Anyone who's ever lived through a society collapse, no, you don't want that. You don't want that. Right. And it's the same with nuclear war. You get some people that are like, oh, there's going to be a nuclear war. It's like, there's going to be a nuclear war? Really? I mean, have you ever looked at Hiroshima and what happened? You do realize the atomic bombs that they've got, the nuclear weapons they've got now are like 10 times the size of what they did at Hiroshima. Now, have you ever seen what they did at Hiroshima, what they did at Nagasaki? And you want that 20 times that size all over the planet. You want that. That's what you want? I mean, these people, there's a disconnect, right? It's and this is what we're fighting against, because it fits the exact same way with people not understanding that we should speak in common sense language, right? I mean, it's like, you know, it's like, oh, you can't wave the American flag. American flag is racist. Well, I'm trying to recruit people in America, and I want them to understand that my political movement will make America a better country. You do understand that, right? No, I don't want America to be a better country. It's like, okay, so you're living in this political world in your head where nuclear war isn't so bad and America collapsing is revenge for it being an evil racist society. So you got this like fantasy world in your head. I'm living in the real world and trying to talk about real people about how policies could be implemented to really change their lives. So I need them to join a real movement to carry out those policies. I'm doing something different than you. And I repeatedly, continually come up against this. People that are thinking about communism or thinking about Marxism on the internet. It's like, you know, Gleb, this is a fair question. If this happens, we're fucked. Pray. That's basically all we can do in that situation. And there's a lot of people that don't really comprehend that, right? We came very close to nuclear war a couple weeks ago. I mean, not like last weekend. Biden was threatening to launch long-range missiles, to give Ukraine permission to launch long-range missiles into Russia. And at that point, Russia said, oh, you do that, and then we go to war with the NATO countries. And then the USA backed down. Good, right? But do you realize how close we get? Like, if that happened, and people say, well, what would you do under that circumstance? What would I do? What would you do? Right? Well, Caleb, you work for RT and I'm like, yeah, and you live on planet Earth. And if Russia and America went to war, nuclear weapons go off, and it's a really, really bad situation. So I really want people to kind of, there's an element of like people not realizing that life is not a movie. Life is not a video game. That real people die and real people suffer. Like, people don't get this. People don't get this. And there's this like disconnect. And I find it very, very disturbing. People think about their life as if they're sitting there watching a movie. Yeah. Remember no toilet paper in stores a few years ago and how badly we flipped out. Now imagine no electricity for months. Like, people don't, and I want to shake people sometimes, be like, this isn't a movie. Okay. This isn't a movie. This isn't an internet argument. This is real life. We're talking about what's going to happen in our country. And, I just want to shake people awake sometimes. For some people, politics is this like weird fantasy role-playing game that they're playing. Yeah, there's no reset. Ugh. Anyway, I hope that rant got to somebody. Next question. Israel should be de-established, and a singular settler state for Muslims, Christians, and Jews should replace the Zionist criminal cabal. I agree, Chris, with everything you're saying there. I think that the government of that area should represent all the people who live there, no matter what their religion, no matter what their ethnic background. All people should have equal rights. That said, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, Chris. And I don't know about, people ask me, I'm repeatedly asked, Caleb, and this is kind of along the lines of what I was saying before. Maybe I'm being a little bit repetitive, but, people say to me, Caleb, do you think Israel has the right to exist? No, I don't. I think that you can't have a country for one race, right? And Israel is created for the Jews, right? It's a country. And so if you ask me, Caleb, does Israel have the right to exist? I will say no. However, what I think about that doesn't matter. Israel's existence is not reliant on what Caleb thinks, right? And I don't think Israel is going to go away. It will eventually probably go away, but it's going to take some time, right? I mean, I think there was a document that WikiLeaks revealed that the CIA said Israel might collapse in 50 years. I think there's a very good chance that Israel could collapse within 50 years, but it's going to take 50 years. It's not going to collapse tomorrow, and it's not going to collapse because I say it, right? And that there's a lot of things like that where, it's like, okay, I don't think Israel has the right to exist, but me saying that doesn't change things, and that the Palestinians need to get into a better situation. And a number of people saying Israel has no right to exist doesn't necessarily improve things for them. I mean, unless that would lead to Israel not existing, which that's not happening at this point. So, I mean, Israel seems to be trying to expedite that process with everything they're doing. I mean, they seem to be desperate for an all-out war, but Israel's not going to be the same, and it will probably change a lot in the process of decline. And I would agree with that. I would agree, right? But I hope people understand. Yeah, exactly. It exists now. So what do we do, right? And I hope people get what I'm saying, right? There is ideals and what is right and what is wrong, and then there is what do we do with what we've got. And that is a common thing that, when I'm trying to work with people, often when people are in situations in their life that they don't like, right? This applies to like everyday problems. What do we do about it? Right? And this is something, again, part of the reason we're calling ourselves innovationists, right, is because people need to learn to solve problems, right? A couple of years ago, we had a trip to Nicaragua, right? Turned out we had to cover our own plane tickets, right? That, our trip was covered once we were there, but we needed to get our own plane tickets. And so there were like 2 or 3 people that wanted to go to Nicaragua. And then when they found out we had to cover our own plane tickets, they're like, oh, we can't go. I said, what do you mean we can't go? We just got to raise the money. they're like, yeah, but I'm like, we just got to raise the money for our plane tickets. That's simple. Right. They're like, but how do we do that? And I'm like, I raise money all the time. We do a GoFundMe. I reach out to different people who've donated. There's various things we can raise the money for our plane tickets. And we did raise the money for our plane tickets. And that there's this like, oh, we're defeated. And it's like so many people I know when they want to do something and like plan A doesn't work, they go, oh, game over. And it's like they think it's a video game. It's like, oh, game over. We lost the game. It's like, no, solve the problem. Right. But in order to solve the problem, you have to live in the real world. You can't solve problems with slogans. You can't solve problems with ideals. Right. You can make decisions based on your ideals. But if you're handed a certain scenario, you have to then take that scenario and innovate. You have to figure out what in this context can I do? What can I actually do to improve the situation? Like, you have to think, okay, right? I've got ink, I've got plastic. How can I make a pen? Right. And that is something that a lot of people struggle with. It's been pointed out to me that in a lot of situations, the way we're training young people now is that we're training them to be very obedient, to almost like be like robots. Right. And that, through playing video games and through computers in school, right. The kids in school, they've all got their like little computer thing at their desk. And that we don't teach people problem solving. We teach people how to push A or B or C. We don't teach people to like figure out the answer on their own or figure out what could be an answer. Right. There's not a lot of problem solving skills among our next generation. And that is a problem. And I've noticed this, that a lot of people, first of all, a lot of people make plans they have absolutely no intention of ever carrying out. This is something that has always annoyed me. I don't make plans that are not realistic, but I know a lot of people who sit there and come up with the most unrealistic fantasies about what they're going to do. And I'm sitting there with them and I'm like, okay, I actually want to put this into implementation. I don't think this one part is going to happen. I don't think this part is going to happen. So let's make a real plan because I actually want to carry this out. And they just want to sit there and like come up with this, well, maybe we could have a dinosaur there. And I'm like, okay, I get that you're like having, a fun daydreaming thing, but it's like, I actually want to do this. And because I actually want to do this, we need to be realistic here, right? We need to be realistic, right? Scott Ritter's banned from speaking at Rage Against the War Machine. What do? Well, we get some money and we find a hotel in the DC area and we reserve it. And then we make a flyer for Scott Ritter speaking after the rally. And then we send our members to the rally to hand out the flyer and we get food for people to eat there. And we solve the problem, right? And that a lot of people that I know, I get very frustrated with them. Because, Scott Ritter's banned from speaking at Rage Against the War Machine. And so they go, oh, man. Well, what if we took over the stage at Rage Against? And then they come up with this. They either say, oh, man, and they just get really depressed. Or they sit there and like fantasize about something that is not at all realistic. Some like unrealistic thing. And I'm just like, let's actually solve the problem. Right. And this is something I've been dealing with my whole life. Right. I mean, in so many different ways and not just in politics, in many aspects of my life. Right. So I want to achieve something, or my group of friends or my group of people I'm working with want to achieve something. And none of them actually want to achieve. I mean, they don't understand that achieving things involves coming up with realistic solutions and realistic answers. Right. There's an element of, there's a name for this. I think there's a name that the psychologists have for this, but it's this process of going, okay, right? So I need, right? If I were going to walk across the room, right? I have to think in my mind, I am going to walk across the room. So I have to push the desk and then I have to turn and then I have to stand up and I have to walk across the room. Right. But in order to do that, I have to realistically understand where the room is. I have to understand what my body, but some people, they just don't. There's an element of like, you have to make a plan that is a realistic plan that doesn't involve me, growing wings and flying across the room. And then you have to make your body carry the plan out. And then you have to learn while you're doing it. Right. you have to learn while you carry out your plan. And if it doesn't go as well, or part of it's difficult, you learn, right? And that this is how you accomplish things in the real world, is you go through the process of trial and error. You come up with plans, you carry the plans out. I mean, this is what everything means, right? You get into a situation, you go, what are our options? What are we trying to achieve? And then you try to achieve your goal. And if you don't achieve it, you go, why did this not work? And then you try to achieve it another way. And this is how you learn. And that a lot of younger people, they play a video game. And in a video game, there's only 3 buttons you can push. And if you just push the right buttons, everything's fine. But if you don't push the right buttons, there's no other way you can do it. And they don't solve problems. I hope that I'm making sense here. But this is something that I have noticed. It's a really big problem in our society, is people accept defeat too easily. People think that the way you do things is you just push the button. They don't think about different options. They don't go through trial and error. They don't go out and fail and learn from their failure and try again, right? Which is something that I can't tell you the number of times that I have tried things that didn't work. And I didn't give up. I didn't give up. I learned from it. There was somebody I lived with years ago, and he came to New York, and he was going to get a job in New York. And he went to one job interview, and whoever it was who was doing the interview with him yelled at him for wearing jeans. Okay, right? And they said, why did you wear jeans to your job interview? So he comes home from the interview. Oh, I wore jeans to the job interview. I'm horrible. I said, so at your next job interview, don't wear jeans. But he didn't go to another job interview. He was just like, oh, see, I can't get a job. I'm like, wait, just go to your next job interview and okay, don't wear jeans. You'll never do a job interview with that guy again, right? It's not like he's going to put on the internet, oh, don't hire this guy. He wore jeans to my interview. No one cares, right? Learned helplessness. Exactly. I see it everywhere, right? And okay, you went to the job interview and you wore jeans and the guy was rude to you and you didn't get the job. So for your next job interview, don't wear jeans. How about that? But a lot of people, they just get into this like, I don't know. I'm rambling. I apologize. Sorry about that. But hey, at least I'm with you guys. You know what I mean? I'm with you guys, and that's what counts. You guys, this is a hard time. Look, I'm devastated by what happened, what Israel did. I mean, and I'm also angry about the response to it because I'm seeing so stupid responses. It's like when they killed Qasem Soleimani. I see people that respond to these events in like the stupidest way. Oh, well, he's a terrorist. Oh, so we got to be here for each other. Nights like this are really important, right? We got to be here for each other in these times because we get it. If you're watching this, you get it. You get it. You get it. And that means, I joined Code Pink to protest in the streets. Well, they do good stuff. I think Code Pink does great stuff. I mean, I like the disruptions that they do. I like the anti-war rallies. I think they do great stuff. And I hope that you and Code Pink do great anti-war work. And I hope you join the Center for Political Innovation. We do great anti-war work too. I hope you sign up and come to our workshop and we'll talk about it. And we allow dual membership in Code Pink. You can be in Code Pink and be in CPI. And we have a few members who protested with Code Pink. I think twice when I was in Iran, there were Code Pink people with me. I went to one conference. Medea Benjamin was there. I went to another conference. Tig Berry was there. So hey, if you're in Code Pink and you do anti-war work with them and you want to join the CPI or at least come to our events, that's fine with us. I think it's good. I'm glad you're doing something. And you join it because you want to protest. You want to do stuff in real life, talk to real people, not just sit on the internet. I agree. I applaud you, Smoggy Rob. I think that you're moving in the right direction. You joined Code Pink for good reasons. I think you'll join CPI for good reasons. I hope you're signing up for the workshop right now, and then I will meet you in Chicago because you sound like you're somebody who wants to get shit done in real life. And that's what I want as well. There you go, Smoggy Rob. Thumbs up. All right. Trump was key to the last Ukraine aid to pass Congress. I mean, look, I think Biden is just pouring as much money in there as he possibly can right now. Right. I saw the 7-minute, press conference Trump did with Zelensky, and it was certainly amusing, to say the least. And it's pretty clear that Ukraine is on one side, and it looks like Ukraine tried to kill Trump. That's what it looks like if you look into Ryan Roth and who he is, etc. So, yeah, I don't know what to say there. You know, I mean, the MAGA Republicans have blocked aid to Ukraine very significantly, and they have held up aid to Ukraine, and they have been anti-Ukraine in a lot of ways. So I mean, facts beg to differ. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene says awful things about Israel, Palestine. She says awful things about a lot of things, but on Ukraine, she's right, and she sounds like Sarah Flounders, right? Sarah Flounders was the head of the International Action Center when I was there for a long time. That was Ramsey Clark's nonprofit, and it was money for jobs, not war. Money for jobs, not war. Money for food stamps, not for war. And then I hear Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's up there. Money for jobs and not for war. You know, I'm just like, oh, okay, there we go. You know, I mean, look, I'm at the point where I want to get the job done, and I will work with anybody. So there we go. What tangible actions, like Castro's transfer of property from landlords to renters in Cuba in 1959, can be implemented in the USA today to inspire workers to fight for their rights? Well, there's a couple things wrong with what you just said there. First of all, like Fidel Castro violently overthrew the military dictator. You had Fulgencio Batista. He was the military dictator. Fidel Castro was from a very wealthy family in Cuba, and he violently overthrew Batista, right? And so once he was in power, he implemented some dramatic reforms to make him very, very popular. One of those dramatic reforms, eventually 1962, they announced they were moving towards socialism, becoming a communist country. You know, part of the popular reforms they enacted was what you're describing. That's a very different situation. Now, the Center for Political Innovation, if you go to our website, cpiusa.org, you'll find our 4-point plan. These are 4 dramatic reforms that would change U.S. society. The first is a mass mobilization to rebuild the country, and hiring the unemployed, rebuilding the country, roads, bridges, universities, power plants, high-speed railway, hiring unemployed people to rebuild America. 2 is public control of oil and our natural gas, and to use the natural resources of America, the vast wealth of America's coal and timber and natural gas and oil, using that wealth to fund it, and public ownership and public control of the wealth of our natural resources. Step 3 is the creation of a national bank that would assign credit, you know, in order to carry out a national plan to grow the economy. Create a national bank and assign loans to businesses and loans to people to buy homes, etc., based on what would make the economy stronger. And the 4th then would be the enactment of an economic bill of rights. Now, those are 4 things that wouldn't necessarily, kind of like what you're describing here, wouldn't necessarily be socialism, but would lead to improving people's lives and changing property relations. It would challenge the property relations within society. It would challenge the property relationships, the property rights of the big corporations that own the oil and natural gas, the property rights of the bankers to lend money at interest, right? And that this 4-point plan would dramatically change the U.S. economy, and it would build up the power of a very popular state that would break the power of the big corporations. And that's what our program is, right? It's been pointed out that at the end of the day, right, and this is something, Trotsky talks about this in his writing. He gets it a little bit wrong, but it's something that Trotsky points to that he kind of gets. But, right, revolutionary movements, right, one sign of a non-serious revolutionary movement is that they have a maximum and minimum program. And that's the way most communist groups are, that they have a minimum program, which is stuff that's basically what the Democrats would want. Raise the minimum wage a little bit, protect abortion right, just basic. That's called the minimum program. And then they have the maximum program, which is violently overthrow the government and establish a socialist society. And they're walking around and they have 2 speeds. They have stuff that Democrats and pretty much everybody, liberals and stuff that doesn't really change anything. That's just kind of basic standard demands. And then they have big things that are not going to happen anytime soon. That's how they're not serious, right? And that serious revolutionaries have what's called a transitional program that is neither minimal or maximum, but is things that would change the nature of society, but are realistic, like things that could actually happen that would change the nature of society. And that if you look at actual revolutions that happen, they tend to have a transitional program, right? They have, and if you look at, peace, land, and bread, that's what the Bolsheviks said. They said, we're going to end World War I, and we're going to redistribute land to the peasants, and we're going to distribute food and make sure people have enough to eat. That in and of itself is not full communist revolution, but it's also not stuff that the power structure was already willing to do. It was a transitional program. It was three things that were a pretty big deal that a lot of people wanted and could see being carried out, but challenged the power of the people that were running Russia at the time, wanted to continue the war. The aristocrats wanted to keep their land and, the idea of mass distributions of food. But those three things, that's what made the revolution. And if you look at, I often read the Kim Il-sung, the leader of the Korean Revolution. Many times I have read what I think is really amazing, right? In this is a book, Kim Il-sung, Selected Works. And in here, he has the things that brought North Korea to power, right? The 21-point platform, right? And I've read this on this stream many times because you look at it, it doesn't actually seem that radical. It doesn't seem that radical, but it's a bunch of things that change the nature of Korean society. 1, liquidate all remnants of Japanese imperialist rule. 2, wage an implacable struggle against anti-democratic and fascist elements. 3, grant the entire people freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and freedom of religion. 4, see to it that the Korean people have the right to form committees, popular committees. 5, grant equal rights to all citizens, regardless of sex, religion, or property status. 6, assert the inviolability of persons and their residence, and protect the law and property of citizens in their private possessions. Communists starting up private property. There you go. 7, abolish all judicial organs which were operating during the time of Japanese rule. 8, develop industry and agriculture and transport and trade to enhance the people's welfare. 9, nationalize big enterprises, transport services, banks, mines, and forests, public ownership of banking and natural resources. 10, allow and encourage free activity in handcraft and trade, right? So small businesses, promote small business owners. 11, confiscate all land belonging to Japan and to Japanese collaborators. 12, fix market prices for living necessities to combat speculation and usury. 13, institute a system of equitable tax and a progressive income tax. Make people who have more pay more taxes. 14, introduce an 8-hour workday. 15, institute life insurance for factory and office workers. 16, introduce universal compulsory education in primary, secondary, and college. 17, develop national culture, science, the arts, and radio. 18, set up special schools on a wide scale for training personnel required for the state organs. 19, encourage science and the artists in their work. 20, increase the number of state-run hospitals. That's it. All right, now it's the 20-point platform. This is what the North Korean Workers' Party came to power on. Those 20 things, and those things actually don't really seem that radical, and they seem like a big deal, right? Shouldn't a country have a public education system? Shouldn't you encourage science and the arts? Shouldn't you promote small businesses? Shouldn't the Japanese colonizers who'd been oppressing people, shouldn't their property be confiscated? Shouldn't you abolish the courts that they set up? Shouldn't the people who collaborated with them, and got rewarded for it and got given land and money, shouldn't their property be taken away? If you look at that plan, that's what the Korean Workers' Party, the communist leadership of North Korea, that's what they came to power on. It's not very radical, but it's things that only they could offer, right? All the other people, all the other political parties weren't willing to do that because that cut into the power, because those Japanese collaborators were the people who owned a lot of the land. Those Japanese collaborators had a lot of power in the military, and they weren't going to give up their power, and only the Korean Workers' Party could implement that 20-point platform. And it sounds pretty basic, but it changed the course of history. And that's the science of the art of being a revolutionary, is you find what you can offer that seems pretty basic and seems like common sense, seems like something that nobody could be against, but the power structure that exists in your society won't allow it. And you can offer it. And generally, revolutions, when communists come to power, they're advocating things that pretty much everybody wants. But the old society is in such a severe crisis and is so dysfunctional, it can't offer that. And they have a very big political organization, and they can offer it. I've talked many times about how there are 3 stages in revolutionary organizing. There's strategic defensive, and that's what we're in now. And in strategic defensive, it's a struggle to just keep your group together. To just function as an organization is very, very difficult, right? And that's what most communist groups are in. And strategic defensive is a very difficult time to operate because you don't know what success looks like. You can't measure success and failure because you can't succeed. But out of strategic defensive, you can enter a period called strategic equilibrium. And that's when the crisis in society has ripened to the point that the situation is so bad that people want to hear what you have to offer. And the ruling class are fighting enough among themselves that you can insert yourself, and that creates space for the revolutionary organization to exist. And then there's the strategic offensive. And that's the final stage. And that's when the crisis in society has gotten to the point that there's a big division in society. And the revolutionary organization represents the bulk of one side in that division in society. And so as the fight, as that polarization carries out, they're on the one side and they take power, right? And those are the 3 stages of a revolutionary movement, and that we're headed towards strategic equilibrium. In the next 2 to 3 years, we could very well have strategic equilibrium in America. Right now, we have strategic defensive. We're just struggling to hold groups together, and that's what makes it very, very difficult. But in a period of strategic equilibrium, where the fighting in the ruling class is intense enough that your organization is allowed to exist and flourish, and where the masses, the conditions of the masses are bad enough that they want to hear a revolutionary message and they need to join some kind of organization just to survive, just to care for, because the conditions have deteriorated enough, right? That is strategic equilibrium, and we are headed toward that. The ruling class are fighting with each other, living conditions are dropping, and pretty soon we're going to be in strategic equilibrium. And that's why we need to lay the foundations in terms of building real organizations that have real roots in communities, real buildings, we have to build a real base of people so that when strategic equilibrium hits, we can flourish. And eventually, heading toward a period where there's a big divide in society and we're on one side of it and we are the bulk of one side of it. And that's how we become the government, right? This is the process of how revolutions are carried out. There are those 3 stages. Now, Mao Zedong used those in relation to the theory of guerrilla warfare. We're not doing that, right? We're not in the third world. We're not waging armed guerrilla warfare. We're not doing anything like that, right? We are talking simply about mass political organizing. In the 1930s in the United States, there was strategic equilibrium, briefly, because of Roosevelt, because he was under attack by the people who wanted to overthrow him, because there was a labor movement, and there was a Great Depression, and there was the threat of fascism, and communists positioned themselves as the mass organization that was in favor of organized labor and union rights, that was anti-fascist. And because of that, they flourished. And in most major cities, they were a big organization. They had a lot of power in the labor movement. Roosevelt had to protect them and work with them. And for a brief moment, in like about 1934, 35, until the end of World War II, there was strategic equilibrium. And then McCarthyism, and it got back into strategic defensive. And we've been there ever since. Now, the new communist movement of the 70s, briefly, there was talk of like maybe we could head towards strategic equilibrium, but it didn't happen. All right, they never got there. The crisis didn't get there. But the new communist movement of the 70s was like the last time you had a large number of Americans that were actually thinking about strategic equilibrium. And it didn't work out too well, but because the conditions weren't there. I mean, the U.S. economy was very prosperous, and there were other issues, and you didn't have strategic equilibrium in the 1970s, but you did have a large number of people who were aiming to achieve it, and that's what is important. And that's why, again, I would encourage you to read our textbook. Read our textbook. Read our textbook, and you will learn. You will learn. About all of this, right? And you will learn about different things. In this textbook, I go over a lot of important stuff. But generally, right, we're headed toward a time when a revolutionary organization in America that seeks to build a new society, when we could actually flourish. We're not there yet, but we have to be operating as if we intend to get there. And my frustration is that people don't live in the real world, and they're not thinking about how we could actually get there. In order to get there, we have to get the job done. We have to see a job that needs to be done, and we need to do it. Right? That simple, right? We need to see a job that needs to be done, and we need to do it. Right? We need to figure out, like, oh, this needs to be done, and this is the deck of cards that we're handed, so let's do it, right? And that is a skill. And you learn by doing, and it's trial and error, and you make mistakes, and you have setbacks, but that's what you do, right? You see a job that needs to be done, and you do it. All right. At the same time, Javier Milei has reaffirmed that Argentina is on the side of Israel and America, while half the country lives in poverty. Javier Milei is an absolute idiot. And he is everything that anyone who's opposed to the low-wage police state, anyone who's opposed to World War III should be against. And just because he says, I'm a libertarian, I hate communists, it shouldn't give anyone pause. He's a complete doofus. And he is wrecking Argentina. And he's such a big supporter of Israel. He's literally converted to Judaism because he supports Israel so much. And he is, he's gonna put Argentina on the dollar. He's rejecting the BRICS. Javier Milei is an utter doofus and fool. And what I get frustrated by, there's a lot of people that are very anti-war, very anti-police state, that think, and I just want to shake them, but Javier Milei gets up and says, communism is blah, 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 blah. And they're like, whoa, he stuck it to the World Economic Forum. I'm like, no, he didn't. When he says communism, he means Russia and China. He means Cuba. He didn't stick it to the World Economic Forum at any point. He promoted the very policies they're promoting: austerity, degrowth, and impoverishment. Like, there is nothing good about Javier Milei. I have not yet to this day heard anything good that Javier Milei has done. Nothing. I mean, I'm waiting. Show me one good thing he's done. He just gets up there and spews textbook anti-communism and worships imperialism. He worships the big imperialist monopolies. We'll react to his UN speech here coming up. We'll do that. I can't do that tonight, though. I'm starting to lose my voice, and it is almost midnight. And I thank you all for being here. We're almost at 3.5 hours. We did a good stream tonight. But listen, go and register for the workshop. Go and register for the workshop. We need you there, right? If you like what I'm saying and you don't just find this to be some kind of form of intellectual entertainment, I need you to be there. You need to come to the workshop. Come to the workshop, right? Go and register for the workshop. We need you there. I'm committed to building a real movement in the United States, and I will work with anybody, and I will get the job done. And, I made a list of everything CPI did this year so far, and that list was really long, and we've still got October, November, and December left in this year, right? It's the end of September. Like, we have done so much this year. We have done so much, so we're getting it done. And, if you want to get the job done, come do it with us. That's what I'm telling you. If you want to get the job done, come get it done with us. And if you're not interested in getting the job done, I'm not the guy to talk to. My aim is to get the job done. I'm rolling up my sleeves and I'm getting it done. I've got a job to do. So on that note, folks, I am going to put on the closing music and I'm going to bed. I've got church in the morning, and yeah, there we go. All right. I've got church in the morning, and then I'm going to try to get it done. I'll probably be back tomorrow night. Don't know why I wouldn't be. So there we go. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.